Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
All right, here we go. Harry Styles. The fact that his name is Harry kind of bothers me. Harry Styles versus Candace Owens. No, I do not have her on today. Sorry. Everybody asked me that. When I did Tommy Lahren, When I did Tommy Lahren, everybody asked me the same thing. No, she's not. She won't come on with me. I'm not cool enough yet, I guess. But I do have a really cool guest today. His name is Mr. Richard Cooper. There we go. Greetings, salutations, thank you. Oh, and I'm going to throw in Mr. Richard Cooper right here. There he is. There's your thing. Let me switch back to all that good stuff.
I need to up my intro production quality, man. You knock it out of the park.
Nah. Somebody finally sent me this.
We're never gonna score. We're never gonna score.
As for all you trolls that are already sitting in my my comment threads, because I was foolish enough to actually do my homework for this one and do a little bit of build up for this this particular episode. I have Sam Botta in there, who is smashing you trolls right as we speak right now. Thank you, Sam, for being in there and being so diligent. He does the work, so you don't have to. So I don't have to. Today we're going to talk about what's going on with Candace Owens, and I'm just going to jump right in here. I don't have any. I mean, the book's coming out. We'll talk about your book before you go. I got Rich for about an hour, so I wanted to bring him in because Rich had a really interesting take on what was going on with Candace Owens and Harry Styles. Now, if you do not know who Harry Styles is, he is a former singer of One Direction. I'm pretty sure it was One Direction. My daughter says it was One Direction because she used to be into One Direction back when she was like in middle school or something like that. So that's the only reason I know who this dude is. All right. It's not like I follow. It's not, if he's not a Swedish death metal band, I don't follow him. So
what does she think of him wearing a dress in that post?
It's funny. I told her, I have told her that there are certain guys that I think are a little on the gay side, the homosexual side, and he's one of these guys that sort of struck me as that. There's a few of the guys that she used to like back in the day, like back in her, like when she was in middle school and when she was in like her freshman year of high school. We would have conversations about that, and I go, you're not the most manly dude in the world, don't you think? And so we would have those conversations, and and so what's funny to me is this is not the first time Candace Owens has had a problem with a guy like this. Oh, you're entertained? Thank you, Alex. I have, where did it go? I'm just going to throw this up here because it's a little bit easier to just simply share this. I'm going to share this part of the screen here real quick. Where did it go? There it is. This is our good friend. He was just on the cover of Vogue. And apparently he likes to wear women's clothes. And of course, now I think what's interesting right now is a lot of people are sort of either they love him or they hate him kind of thing. And honestly, this is kind of a distraction from a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. But Candace Owens writes this, and this is what set off this made it onto TMZ. It made it onto Entertainment Tonight. It actually made it onto ET Canada as well. So just so you know, this is worldwide. It says there is no society that can survive without strong men. The East knows this. In the West, the steady feminization of our men at the same time that Marxism is being taught to our children is not a coincidence. It's an outright attack. Bring back manly men. And then, of course, she was, referring to Mr. Harry Styles here. If you saw my thumbnail images, you'll get an idea of some of the stuff that he just basically did a photo shoot for Vogue magazine. And so it was was kind of a big deal, I guess. And people were just, losing their minds over this. Where's this other? I got one more here I want to show you real quick too. And let's see, Moop, you can go to hell. There you go. So anyways, there's a little bit more to this. I'll just show you this is the actual tweet. There we go. There's no society. Okay, so this is basically the same thing she just said. And then, of course, Harry Styles here is trying to make a statement by, dressing up like Ruby Rose from Fifth Element. He looks like, and
that was played by Chris Rock, wasn't it?
No, it was Chris Tucker, actually.
Chris Tucker, that was it. Yeah.
It was actually pretty funny. It was a good movie.
It was a great movie, yeah.
I thought it was a pretty good movie. But so then, of course, and Rory, she does have a point. And I wanted to start out here by saying that whenever I do breakdown videos like this, I'm just going to give you the standard caveat here, which is I'm not attacking Candace Owens. In fact, I would very much like to have a conversation with her at some point. I doubt that's ever going to happen. So I kind of had to take things into my own hands. And that's what I'm kind of doing right here. Rich, you also had something, and I have this kind of on let's see, on tap as well. Where'd that go? This was what you, there it is. Okay. So this is what you put up on Twitter not too long ago. This is PSA: putting morbidly obese women on the covers of beauty magazines or runways is not going to suddenly make men attracted to unhealthy women. Men are impervious to woke culture. Showing us endless examples of something won't make it any less stupid. And I thought this was interesting because then you put the hashtag, which of course you're not really starting a real hashtag, but it's bring back feminine women. And then of course you outsourced some very interesting cover shots.
A few hotties for you there.
A few hotties for us here. And the reason I wanted, actually the whole reason I wanted to bring you on was because of this exact tweet right here. So I'll bring that out.
Yeah, I just basically took her version of the tweet about bring back manly man. I'm like, all right, let's flip this around. Because whenever you see these challenges to the sexual imperatives of men and women, it's interesting what happens when you flip the script and, you kind of do it the other way.
Right. And that's exactly where I wanted to start with this today. Because she was trying to, again, probably half-heartedly trying to start a hashtag bring back manly men. And, her whole, and she's got a few other tweets. I'm not going to go through them systematically or anything like that, but she's got a few other tweets where she's, and rightly so. I'm not going to say, like I was saying before, it's like, I don't have anything against what she's saying. It's just that I think that she's a part of the problem in that she doesn't see she sees the symptoms, but she doesn't see the disease. And as I was doing some prep work for this show yesterday and this morning, I was watching her interview on because she does a show for PragerU. It's the Candace Owens show. And it reminded me of an episode that she did once where she was interviewing Jocko Willink. I think I said that right. Willink? Willink. Yeah. Sorry, I always butcher his name. Willink. Willink?
Let's just call him Jocko.
Jocko. So he's interviewing Jocko, and Jocko's a manly man, right? I mean, he's wasn't he like a Navy SEAL or something like that? I don't know.
He wanted to be a commando since he was a child. Like this has been on him forever.
Yeah, that part I definitely got while I was taking notes. Yeah. And nothing against the guy. I mean, I'm sure he was from Massachusetts, and he was saying that especially where he was from, the guys, the kids, just they weren't. That's not a military town or military state or whatever, apparently. But that's really what he wanted to do. Great, cool. I'm glad for him. And I got nothing against him, but it was about an hour-long interview about how men aren't men anymore, and they need to take more responsibility, and they need to man up, and they need to, because they're, as she was saying, the reason we have like this Marxist takeover in the United States, or really, in a global sense, we're beginning to lean really heavily towards like communitarianism, towards socialism. And I've made the case that this is primarily because we've leaned so hard to the feminist side of the spectrum, so hard to the gynocentric side of the spectrum. And that's a worldwide thing. That's not just a Western culture thing. It's like it's being exported exponentially, right, across the globe. And so it's in Canada, it's here, it's in Arab countries too. I can show you examples of these. But so so when we look at this kind of stuff, I think what happens is traditional conservatives really kind of get lost because they think that it is, well, if men would just man up, if they would just take responsibility, more and more responsibility, then we wouldn't have these problems. If men would stop wearing dresses, well, I think what she fails to see, and what most traditional conservatives fail to see, is that this is you're looking at the end result of about 50, maybe 60 years of feminization across the board. So we're talking about like 4 or 5 generations of men who have been brought up to prioritize femininity, getting in touch with their feminine side, becoming more emotionalizing things, emotionalism. And of course, everybody started throwing rocks back at her because they're like, oh, well, a man is this or a man is that. And that's really where the conversation started, because then, of all people on planet Earth, Elijah Woods, actor, Hobbit from the Lord of the Rings, Frodo from the Lord of the Rings, decided to chime in and say that that's not what defines a man.
He's not the most masculine fellow, though.
He's not the most masculine fellow in the first place, and I realize that. But I was curious because when you get into these conversations, I'm not even in a conversation because it's Twitter and nobody gives a rat's ass who I am, particularly if they're a blue dot. But I said, well, then what defines masculinity? What defines manhood, if not masculinity? If not, wearing pants and acting like a man, right? Or whatever your definition of those things are. And so I asked that. Of course, I'm never going to get an answer because they don't know. They don't have any real definition. It's all a subjective definition. So I wanted to bring you on here primarily because of that one tweet, and I wanted to ask you about how did people respond to that? Was it a response similar to when you put out your standards for female femininity, right?
Yeah, like the list of 6 ways to keep a man.
Yeah.
Don't be fat, have culinary skills, to be a single mom, like the standard stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let me have a quick look here. I got 94 comments on it. Amen. Too many tattoos for me. Ugly stands out. Nice gut. So brave. Already piped. That was Colt. These chicks are never going to score. I don't think that this got on the radar screen of the feminazis. It seems like it was the here we go. Here's one of the feminazis. Kind of like all the bald dudes with the whole beards phenomenon, blah blah blah. Like they just point and sputter right away to try to shame you.
Yeah, exactly. It gets into this middle school back and forth. Like,
do you have an argument here that you'd like to present, or is it just going to be like, oh, you're bald and have a beard? Well, thanks, Captain Obvious. I can tell. Yeah, I look in the mirror when I get up in the morning.
Yeah. What's funny is it always comes back to looks, right? It always comes back to like, oh yeah,
either looks or sex.
Yeah, they're not hot,
usually boils down to you don't get any because of your looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it always comes back to, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like if you really want to ruin your faith in humanity, just go on like Twitter or go on 4chan or go on Reddit. Certain areas or certain parts, certain forms of Reddit it will destroy your faith in humanity. It's who people become when they think they have anonymity to some degree. Mm-hmm. And so it's always like these schoolyard taunts. It's funny to me how when you put something up like that, people presume that you are tweeting something because you are a 12-year-old boy on the school playground and you want to point and sputter at other people, and they point and sputter back. And it kind of shows you just what the collective mentality is, I guess, in ways. You're never going to have if you think you're going to have some kind of like a rational debate on Twitter, just get off Twitter right now.
My strategy for Twitter is I don't have my DMs open and I don't get notified of replies unless it's somebody that I follow.
Yeah, I took that up too as well, by the way. And
otherwise, you can go down a deep rabbit hole of like, oh my God, is the world really this retarded?
Yeah. So I have I know you've got a new book that's coming out very soon. I just saw the cover for it. I was going to put it up here, but maybe I will. And I have a book coming out as well too. And in that book, I outline there's a chapter in there called Crisis Masculinity, and it sort of dovetails real nicely into what's going on with Candace Owens right here. I think it's also bears repeating that Candace Owens is pregnant right now, and I don't know if she knows she has a boy or a girl, but I would probably guess she has a boy, because that's probably why she's pretty concerned about these things. Is it a dress thing, do you think? Is it the way that he dresses, or is it sort of the overall mentality, and the dress is just a manifestation of it?
Well, she's a TransCon, so I think she's upset that it's mocking traditionally masculine, strong looking dudes. Which is funny, because I mean, I was just thinking as you were talking earlier 10 minutes ago, like one of the first albums that I bought when I was a kid was Twisted Sister's Stay Hungry, and it's like the cover, they're all dressed in like makeup, like overdone makeup, like clown makeup practically, with dyed hair, long hair, but they still look masculine, right? Like they still look like men. You knew underlying all that was still a dude. They sang like men. They didn't high pitch their voice or anything like that. You just knew that you were dealing with men that just kind of like, did a little bit of dog and pony show for the audience.
Yeah.
This is some new level stuff that we're seeing here. This is like, we were talking before we went live, but to me, it's like the whole K-pop, sort of culture, where it's like, there's this large demographic of feminized looking dudes that have the attention and adoration of all the women in Asia and a lot of the guys that want to look like them. And that works for them because they're on a stage and they're popular and they put out music and they have social validation and all that, kind of like the way that Dee Snider did back in the day with Twisted Sister. But it's like, today it's feminized, it's suppressed masculinity, which is a totally different level of it. And you're right, man. It's all about, men bending the knee to a female first primary social order, and, normalizing things that you wouldn't, normally just accept, just because they say that it is okay. I mean, are you going to see guys walking down the street in dresses anytime soon? Probably not where I live, because I live in the suburbs. But if I went downtown, I've seen some freaky shit downtown Toronto.
It makes good bait. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is not the first time. Like Harry Styles, of course, maybe he's a little bit more like high profile, I think. And then technically, I guess he's like a musician, right? He's a singer.
Yeah.
He still have a solo career. I guess he does.
All you got to do is sing.
Yeah. All you got to do is sing and look. Yeah. I mean, how old is the guy? He's got to be in his like early 20s, right?
He looks 20s. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's and I would say that probably the Generation Z girls, my own daughter, grew up with that, right? They saw him they were probably about the same age, if not maybe a couple years older, and now they're in their early to mid 20s, and this is who they are. This is what I've become. It's kind of like Miley Cyrus. Like, she went from being like Hannah Montana and Miley was this nice wholesome little girl on Disney Channel, and now she's Miley Cyrus or Demi Lovato or Lindsay Lohan or whoever else, or gosh, even Bella Thorne was a Disney girl for a while there. But okay, so here's my other question is a lot of people were trying to throw examples at Candace Owens about, like, say, Freddie Mercury or David Bowie, and saying, well, what about them? What about these guys who are like sort of these effeminate men who were like brilliant musicians and brilliant.
Well, Freddie Mercury was gay, and David Bowie, I'm pretty sure he was bi, or leaned in the other, into the other team, didn't he?
Right. Well, it's, to my knowledge, Freddie Mercury was not. I mean, he played in a band called Queen, okay, but to my knowledge, other than that one video where he's in drag, I Gotta Break Free or something like that, I don't think Freddie Mercury had a habit of dressing up in drag all the time. Right. I mean, if you go and you look at, I was introduced to Queen like in the late 70s and in the early 80s. And
he was certainly feminized in his movements and, his gestures. There was a lot of like Mick Jagger in the way that he moved.
But like I'm sure you've probably seen Bohemian Rhapsody, right?
Yeah.
And everybody, well, what about Freddie Mercury? Well, yeah, he was gay, but was he RuPaul? Right?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think he had a habit of that. He was a rock star. It's the same thing with Rob Halford. Rob Halford from Judas Priest, gay guy, but very masculine. Maybe overtly so, but that was his thing. David Bowie, I think, is a little bit different because David Bowie was really more about like fashion rather than like when you say, well, he dressed up like a woman when he was in his experimental phase of whatever, like, yeah, but he also had a lot more going for him than just that, that wasn't like his claim to fame. That wasn't like, oh, I dressed up like a woman, and so therefore
Did he wear dresses though? Let me just do a quick Google
search.
He
might have, but like when I think of David Bowie, I think of him in the 80s, like Let's Dance or China Girl, that kind of stuff.
Oh, we do have lots of photographs of him in dresses, actually.
Yeah. And probably earlier on, I would say probably like
black and white stuff when he had long hair.
Yeah, so probably like late 60s, early 70s. And again, maybe that's what Harry Styles is doing right now, is sort of playing with effeminacy or gender bending or whatever. Another thing, because I know people are going to say this, and I might as well just throw this out there too, because it's like I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the Hollywood metal scene as well. Yes, I had long hair, still have long hair right now. I've had really long hair. I've had really short hair. I've had really long hair again. And people always say, well, what about you, man? You got long hair. Like, well, so did Tarzan. So did Fabio. So did,
Samson.
Yeah. I mean, men, like people have asked me this before. They said, don't you think that long hair on guys is like sort of effeminate? And I go, well, it depends on the guy. So if you're looking at, if you're looking at guys like Jason Momoa, who has had long hair in movies and stuff like that, you don't want to say that guy is effeminate, right? He's got long hair. So I think it just kind of depends on how you go about wearing it and what you're over. Like I've never worn makeup and never worn like women's clothes or anything like that. But like the guys in Poison, or in the early days, yeah, the glam scene was a big deal, and then that passed and everybody went switched over to being sort of like the biker scene or whatever it was. And so when that was over, then they moved on to the next thing, and so it was more like an act, or it was more like something that they put on. And I think that what Candace Owens is saying here is I think things have changed, and I think you probably picked up on this as well, is that it's not just the Hollywood glam scene in one area of planet Earth at a particular time in the for 4 or 5 years in the 80s, and Twisted Sister's a big deal, or Poison is a big deal, or whoever, Pretty Boy Floyd. I'm gonna really age myself by like coming up with some like 80s glam bands, but yeah, I mean that was the thing. You want to know, you want to go see how bad it was in the 80s? Go watch Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's you'll see guys dressing with lipstick and guy liner and all that other good stuff too. What is this? Not a shot at Rich, but have you guys noticed that the beard wearing tattooed up men were originally masculine and turned into a feminine fashion style? Yes, actually, I was just making a funny about that this morning. Everybody's got a hand axe now, right?
Oh yeah, the everyday carry, hand axe.
Carry hand axe, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny that you should say that, because I can remember, and maybe you do too. Do you remember the hipster scene? Like when everybody had like skinny jeans and then they had like this flannel shirt that made them sort of look like a lumberjack. And if you had, I think I remember reading, maybe this was back in like 2014, 2015. I remember reading articles from women who were writing blogs about how cheated they felt when they would get with a guy who had a beard and would wear he looked like a lumberjack kind of guy. And then they'd find out that he drank like IPAs or something like that.
Yeah. Like he doesn't know how to change a tire or check the oil on a car.
Yeah. They look the part. And so
we used to call those guys, for those guys in Ontario watching, we used to call it the Keswickian tuxedo, because you'd go to a party and it's like the guys north of the city would come down from Keswick and they'd be wearing this Keswickian tuxedo, the skinny jeans and then the plaid lumberjack sort of jacket.
Yeah. Yeah. This is funny. Rollo, Rich, Donovan, Ryan, Aaron, Clary, Eat All, whatever. You guys are the modern day 300 Spartans. I don't know if I go that far, but okay.
Yeah.
Pilot stabbing off the feminiverse, threatening our culture. Thank you for leading men, guiding men.
It's so weird, dude, because like Monday's video that I did about marriage, I got emails from guys that are like TradCon, and they're like, you're such a MGTOW, you're telling guys not to get married and you're destroying the West. And at the same time, if like the hardcore black pillar doom pillars see it, they're like, oh, you're a PUA beggar, blah blah. It's like, what
There's
part
no
of this
win. You can't win.
It's like all you guys, man.
Yeah, there's no winning.
But thank you. We appreciate it when you guys say kind things to us too.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that there's a point of distinction here when it comes to like just the way people present themselves, as opposed to like what's really kind of going on in a social sense right now. Because I think in this generation, like in Harry Styles' generation, which I guess I hope I'm right in presuming that he's Generation Z, that there is sort of this either, I want to say, I'll just go ahead and say, because in my fourth book, in the section on crisis masculinity, I talk about this is like, today to be a guy is to have you get three choices when it comes to masculinity today. You get to be an abuser, like a borderline violent potential rapist abuser. You get to be ridiculous Homer Simpson. You get to be the ridiculous dad archetype, or you get to be the incompetent. You get the guy that women will never trust because you don't know what you're doing and you are a washout, or maybe you're like the Lost Boys generation. And those are really kind of like the three. And anything that sort of deviates from those things, like for instance, like as positive as I would like to paint a guy like Jocko Willink, like people will see this generation, I would say at least the last two generations, the millennial generation and the Z generation, will look at this and they will go, well, he's borderline abusive. He's part of the problem. He's the bad coach that kicked you in the ass when you were a kid. And he's the jock. The guy's name is Jocko, right? So he's the jock that like gave you a wedgie in high school, or was a bully, or was the guy that did the hazing, thing. And I think you and I have talked about this before, where I was saying that, just like you were saying before, like that, I don't say the black pill doomer crowd, but because it goes beyond that. But I think a lot of guys, when they see that and they don't know how to really kind of interrelate with other men, they look at other guys as sort of convenient archetypes. And that's one of them, is the guy who has his shit together, the guy who is the guy who looks like Jocko, right? The guy who's built, the guy he almost looks like a drill sergeant kind of guy.
The guy looks like he's made out of steel. Like, let's be honest. But I mean, if you were to ask yourself, if there's an archetype that I could choose to mimic myself after, like to have a look, you'd want to go with the Jocko look rather than the Harry Styles look in the dress, obviously.
Right. Chase, this is a good one. Chase says shock value is essentially peacocking to an extent. You can certainly wear feminine stuff like your hair. It depends on the dude. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why when Mystery was doing his thing with the elevator boots and the top hat, and I mean, you can point out like stuff like old school Kiss. Why did the guys in Kiss put on like 6-inch heels to go on stage to make themselves taller and larger than life? Because that's the shock value. That was what was going on at that time. Same thing with like the glam scene that was going on. But I think what Candace Owens is seeing here is sort of something that it goes a little bit beyond that, because it's not just like this isn't just people who are on stage. And I know Harry Styles is a performer, let's just say. But I think the reason why she has a problem with this, or why she wants to bring back manly men, is because it's not just Harry Styles. It's guys on the street. It's guys you see in the protests. It's guys wearing, was it the guy with the pink pussy hat at the feminist rallies and the Great Women's March, and wearing a big pink brassiere with his kids in tow. And that's, at what point does it become a uniform instead of like a statement of shock, like or a style statement?
I think it's more a uniform than it is the latter, for sure, today.
I think so now.
Yeah, it's like it's part of complying and again supporting a female first primary social order. It's just pushing and pushing and pushing in that direction. It's never going to let up. If you want to see an interesting example of it, there's an Instagram page called Feminist, which is run obviously by feminists. And like the posts that they've been pushing lately now are nipples are nipples. Why can men show their nipples on Instagram, but women can't? Right. It's like, okay, well, there's breast tissue underneath the nipple. There's a fairly large difference between the two, but but they push a narrative that suits their agenda, right?
Right.
The trend's out there. There's no question about it.
And I think the reason why that is even a thing for women, like wasn't there a movement called like Free the Nipple or something like that, where women
I would be surprised.
do this all the time. And I've if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen me tweet this out before, is that women's only real agency for most women throughout their lives is their sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
That's why women always want to take their clothes off whenever they want attention. So when you see things like, oh, well, how come men can show their exposed nipples and women can't? Well, because men and women are different. That's why. Because men.
How dare you say men and women are different? We're equal.
Yeah, because men find women's breasts sexually arousing. That's why. Sorry. Mm. And you know what? You know it. And I know it, and everyone else knows it too.
That's why you take your clothes off and wear a sign that says "Slut March" when you're looking for attention, right?
You probably saw this too. Like when Portland started to explode back in like June. What was it? The naked chick who just decided to strip off all her clothes and just gallivant around in front of like the police lines. And she, of course, you had.
Oh yeah, and then there was the white knight with her with the shield.
With the shield. Yeah. Yeah.
That was great.
Why is that the reflex? Why is that the reflexive thing? To just say, oh, you know what? I'm going to strip naked because that's all women have. Yeah, they know that. I've said so many times about the difference in communication styles between men and women. Like men are overt and women are covert. And when women are overt and they are leaning over into sort of a masculine way of communication, they do so because they want to have in no uncertain terms, there's no room for subtlety, there's no room for nuance. I'm going to strip my clothes off so you'll pay attention to whatever the hell it is that I'm saying. And when a woman, hopefully the woman's good looking, she takes off her clothes and you see her boobs, and you're like, oh, you have my attention. What would you like to say to me right now? Like, I'm listening. Men don't listen. Oh, I'm listening. But I think that's one of the reasons why women will always, strip naked, or they'll dress provocatively or whatever, because they want that attention. And the attention, whether that, once they have it, whatever the message is, I don't know what it is, but that's how they get the attention. Kai says this, he says, unrelated to cross-dressing, but do you guys know what VAWA is? I don't know what that is. You might want to warn men about the dangers of foreign women marrying Americans and then falsely alleging abuse for a green card. That might be in your wheelhouse. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I just dug up that clip. What was the question? You guys can look at that clip there. It's a Reddit clip, so you can see this.
Oh, it's just I've seen this. I've seen this before. Kai actually is. Guys will say, well, you have to be careful of bringing foreign women into this country, because what will happen is then you'll try to marry them, or you bring them here, you get them a green card, and then they'll allege abuse, and now they're in the country, kind of thing, and you're on the hook for abuse because they just simply wanted a green card.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, guys tend to go foreign because it's easier than leveling up and dealing with domestic. The problem that they always find at some point in the future, whether it's 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road, is they adopt Western beliefs and they become just as feminist as everybody else.
Them to begin with.
Yeah, like Eddie Murphy wrote a script about this, either in Delirious or Raw, and it was like, he brings back this Unfufu zebra bee from Africa, and it's like a few years down the road, like, go watch it, half, Eddie, give me half, like, this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, what have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately, Eddie?
So I wanted to also point out that I think one of the reasons why traditional conservatives such as Candace Owens really kind of miss the narrative in all this is because they kind of have an investment in she even calls herself a feminist, but like, she's a good feminist, right? There's a good feminist in the back.
She's a good kind, of course.
Yeah, I'm the good kind. I'm the kind that, and I every time she throws this out there, and this like I said, she's got a show on PragerU. If you go and you look her up on YouTube, she's got a YouTube channel. It's not really well. I mean, she's got like 700,000 subs. Great, because she's Candace Owens, but her real work is on PragerU. And she has the Candace Owens show that is on PragerU. And so for a large part, whenever she's talking about masculinity or traditional masculinity, things like that, again, I'm not against what she has to say. I just think she's right, but she's right for the wrong reasons. And what I think that a lot of traditional conservative feminist women don't really understand is that the reason why guys are the way they are is because they have been brought up on the same sort of equalist pablum that good feminists, good traditional conservative feminists are. And
Tommy Lahren was probably even a better example of that when she did that chirp session a few months ago about men and you know how you guys aren't real men and how my friends and all this sort of stuff. It's like, you know, she comes off as this tradcon, you know, pro-masculine feminine type of woman, but when you dive into her speech to men, you see very, very quickly that she is a feminist. In fact, I mean, all women have a little bit of feminist in them, some more so than others, but all women have it.
Yeah, I've said before that pretty much every person right now has some kind of, if you were born after like 1965, you have some form of feminist ideology has shaped or molded the way that you think about sex and gender and real, maybe even your politics too. You just don't realize that it has. And so, like, to say like, oh, I'm not a feminist, like, well, to identify as a or to not identify as a feminist is basically meaningless in 2020, because right now, for the past 5 generations, feminist ideology and militant feminist ideology has pretty much changed the way that we think about, and you know, thanks to the sexual revolution and hormonal birth control, has pretty much changed the way that we think about gender and we think about sex, casual or otherwise. And it's really nice to have these hopes and dreams of sort of this return to this idyllic state of, 1950s nuclear family kind of thing, where men were men and women were women and we all understood our roles, but we're not going back to that. I'm sorry.
It's never happening. And if I may share a story, I had a conversation the other week with a woman. I was at this family event and she was talking about her, I mean, she's a teacher, so she's talking about the kids in the classroom. And she was saying at grade level SK, which is senior kindergarten, she'll let the girls go to the bathroom by themselves because they're responsible and they don't F things up, but she doesn't let the boys go to the bathroom by themselves because they lock themselves in there, or they make a mess, or they destroy stuff, and it creates extra layers of work for her. And I said to her, I go, well, you realize at that point you're demonstrating to the boys that they're incompetent, right? That they don't have the same skill set as these girls do, so they don't get the same privileges. I mean, you're treating them like defective girls, right? She's like, well, yeah, but I don't want to deal with the crap, right? Like, I don't want to deal with the nonsense. So, I mean, and this is a woman that's pro-masculine, you know, totally in the frame of the guy that she's with, very feminine, all that sort of stuff. She never chirps any kind of feminist stuff. So it's hardwired and it's infused in pretty much all women at some level.
And they don't realize that they're doing it.
Yeah.
She's doing it because she wants to save herself some work. And it's not that she's doing it because she wants to like crush these little boys' spirits, but she does it because that's just sort of like how we've always done it, or she just takes for granted that we teach like this. And I'm glad you brought that up as well, because this is one of the things that I don't think Candace Owens gets, because when I watched her do the interview with Jocko Willink, screw that up. That was the whole thing. It's like, well, how come, we really need to get back to traditional masculinity and conventional. And I agree, we do. But you have to understand how we got to where we are right now, because really all you're going to be doing is requesting that guys put on an act rather than change like what this fundamental, that rather than unlearning what they have learned up to this point. Like you were saying before, when with the best of intentions, when a teacher says, little girls, you can go to the restroom, but little boys, you've got to, take some accountability along with you. Even if you don't realize that that's what's happening, that's what's happening. And it wasn't me that coined this phrase. I think it was Camille Paglia or something, says we raise our boys as if they're defective girls. Yes. And we've been doing that for almost 50 years now, really since the 50s. If you go and you look at the percentage of and this is from the United States, I don't know what it is, and I know in Western countries it's probably similar, but like in the United States, 77 or 78% of teachers that a kid will have from the time it's in preschool till you are in post-secondary school in college, they're going to be female. If you have a male teacher, he's probably going to look like Jocko Willink. If you have a male teacher, he's probably going to be a coach. He's probably going to be a math teacher, maybe a science teacher, maybe a history teacher. But for the most part, 78% of the teachers you're going to have throughout your entire life are going to be female, and they are going to teach you from a female perspective.
When I was a kid in school, Rollo, we used to have shop class. They don't have shop class anymore, but shop class was always run, there was like a massive room with heavy equipment and bandsaws and drills. Yeah, like man shit. And you're always looking forward to that class. And there was always a manly man running the class because he was a, hands-on handyman guy that needed to know how to run all the shit. It was never run by women. That's like one of the areas that I think a lot of guys are let down with today. I mean, most guys wouldn't know how to change a tire, let alone use a lawnmower if they've lived in the city their entire life.
I think that when we look at how we educate our kids, and by and large we educate our kids through public education. Sorry, I know you want to, like, people say, well, go just take them out and homeschool them. Yeah, but not everybody can do that. And then second of all is so as a result of that, as a result of public education, you are going to be taught by females. And if you are not taught by females, you will be taught by a male who is indoctrinated, is embedded in an education system that teaches as if all the students are female. So this is how girls learn, and so therefore we're gonna make boys learn the same way because we think that that's the best way to go about educating the next generation. And so when you look at things like get in touch with your feminine side, learn to express yourself emotionally, and all of these, this touchy-feely drum circle, kumbaya, kind of stuff that's been going on really since the late 60s, has found its way into our education system. And so when we don't have, there's no real incentive for men to become teachers. I mean, really, if you think about it, the pay sucks.
You can pay me enough to do that job. Plus, I get fired within the first week. I mean, there's no way they'd keep me on.
And so the only, and I know people who are teachers right now who have to go through a lot. You have to go through 4 years of education. First of all, you got to learn how to be a teacher, and then you got to figure out what you're going to teach as a teacher. Then you've got to get teaching credentials. Then there's a lot of things, and you got to get a background check. You got to do all this other good stuff. If you
also have to learn how to kiss parents' asses because they always drill you down when little Billy behaves like a prick in school. It's always your fault, right?
And you're going to get paid.
They never take ownership for their crappy ass kids, and most of them are raised by single mothers too now, right?
You're going to start at $36,000 a year.
Yeah. I wanted to say this because you're talking about Candace Owens, wanting to bring back manly man and masculinity. The only way that would ever work is if the women set aside and let the men do the work, which will never happen because they want to intervene in everything now, but let men lead men, right? Like men need to show men how to be men. We don't need somebody like Candace Owens saying, well, this is what masculinity is. This is what manly men will look like, because there's always going to be an amount of feminist indoctrination infused into that lecture, right?
Yes. Well, again, it's the teaching style. If you have nothing but females teaching classes, they're going to teach in a way that they think that kids are going to learn, right? Yeah. There is studies after study about this. In fact, not even just in this country, but in like Scandinavian countries, in the UK, in Western European countries, the United States. We treat boys a whole lot differently, and we educate boys not from a masculine, like boys learn in a different way than girls do. Boys need more time outside. Boys have different motivations and incentives that are natural parts of being a boy.
I have a question for you, because I know that you just wrote the book on red pill and religion. Sorry to interrupt, but did the Bible say that it was encouraging men to raise children after a certain age, and women would kind of just step aside after a certain age and let the fathers take care of the rest of it?
If there is, I think that's Old Testament. I'm fairly certain that that's something like I would expect, like the Jews of the Old Testament probably would have done. I don't know if it's necessarily a Christian thing. I think it probably is a cultural thing more than it is a Christian thing. But I would say, since Abrahamic religions in general used to have I think a standard, or they had a way of raising children that I know where you're getting. I probably I can in the movie 300, when the Spartans would take the boy away from their mother at like 6 years old and turn him into a man and like make him fight a rabid wolf or something like that. Maybe that's a little bit glamorized, but there was a time in our our tribal past anyways, where like say Native American children were, boys were taken from their, their mothers and said, okay, it's time for you to be time for your rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a bar mitzvah was, right? You're now at 13 years old, you're a boy, no, you're a man. Mm. And there used to be rites of passage. I'm glad you brought that up, because there used to be rites of passage for when a boy was, say, between the ages of like 13 and whatever, where he was accepted as a male member of the tribe, and he is now a man. He's now an adult man, and he, maybe he's not like a full-fledged member, but he has the responsibilities of being a man. And I think we kind of like, in general, at least in the United States, we say that that's at 18 years old. You can vote, you can go to war, you can be killed because you're a man when you turn 18 for whatever reason. There's no fanfare for that. There's no rite of passage for that. There's no ritual for that. It's just like, okay, it's your 18th birthday, join the army, kid, or it's whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's different depending on the culture. I know that, and you can make this a tribal thing as well, because I know that in gang culture, at least in the United States, it's like you got to go out and beat the hell out of somebody, or you got to get beat up yourself, and then now you're a member of the gang kind of thing. There's that hazing ritual. There's that rite of passage that you have to be a badass enough to have, killed the rabid wolf with a sharpened stick, and now you're part of the Spartan tribe, or you're part of whatever this is. And we don't have that anymore either, because we have confused. I wanted to get this out here before you had to go, but I think what has happened over the course of really the last 50 years is a systematic effort to people say, well, the kids today, or the men today are manginas, right? They've been pussified. Mm-hmm. Well, that's been going on for a very long time, for at least 50, maybe 60 years now, because we have systematically feminized men and masculinized girls, in that we teach girls as if they, we teach our boys as if they're defective girls. And part of that is training boys to be more effeminate, get in touch with your feminine side, assuming you even have a feminine side. And expressing yourself emotionally, and that's being vulnerable, right? All of these tropes that we talk about in the Red Pill all the time, those find their roots back in the late 60s, and now here we are in 2020. So this has been going on for a long time. There's no ritual that is like a demarcation of you going from being a teenage boy to being a man. In fact, I've talked to guys who will. They'll be 18 I've talked to guys who are really kind of headstrong teenage guys who will say, I'm a man today, I'm a man. And girls will be like, he's a man, and they'll laugh. Like, just to call themselves a man today is really hard for a lot of guys, because they don't know what it is. Because since the late 60s, we have done our damnedest, at least in Western cultures, to confuse what masculinity is. That's why I brought up Elijah Woods. Because Elijah Woods is a perfect example of this. He's not the most masculine guy in the world. Got it. Okay. You can make fun of him all day long, but let's dissect that a little bit. The reason why he thinks that masculinity isn't what defines a man is because he doesn't know what would define a man. There's no earthly clue, because he's part of a generation that never had that explained to them. They never had that ritual. They never had that, okay, today I am a man. Like, they've never had that explained to them. And so it's subjectivized. So then something that's subjective. I get to define it. I get to tell you what I want. It's what I feel. I'm going to be vulnerable. That's not conventional masculinity. Go ahead.
And then women on the other side of the coin are being taught to behave more like men.
Right. To be more masculinized.
So it's like you have feminized boys and you have masculinized girls. It's like, and you're wondering why we have, like, there's all kinds of problems out there.
Well, and then, okay, so you know what happens? You know what the result is? In 2020, Candace Owens gets all pissed off at Harry Styles for putting on a dress. That's Correct. What happens. That's Correct. The end result of all of that. Yeah. Bulldog Mindset says it's women's job to undermine traditional masculinity as much as they possibly can. It's evolution's way of weeding out weak men. Even women who think they support masculinity will emasculate a man the first chance they get. Yes, that's part of...
If she doesn't respect him.
If she doesn't respect him, and if she herself... has no, I think what's funny is, like, even though we try to define what masculinity is, what's funny? No one ever has a problem saying, well, what is femininity? No one has that flip side, just like what you were saying before, bring back feminine women. We don't have that discussion. We only talk about the masculine side. We only go, oh, you're either gay, or you're an abuser, or you're incompetent, or you're a ridiculous man. And usually ridiculous is all three of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something that's toxic masculinity. And
well, you'll notice on that Instagram page that I mentioned earlier that I've been following that they normalize stretch marks, obesity, like ugly, abused, unhealthy bodies. And they don't talk about, the masculine side of it unless it's toxic masculine, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about, approval and acceptance of gross lifestyle choices for women, AKA obesity and not taking care of themselves, while at the same time simultaneously trying to feminize men.
Yeah. Yeah. I've read this before. Al says this is a conspiracy theory. Corporations supporting feminizing society because it teaches men learned helplessness, i.e. not repairing anything, just buying new stuff. I've heard the arguments for the Rockefellers creating feminism. I've heard the Jewish question thing thrown out about it too. Again, none of that works unless men are men and women are women. None of that works unless we have a masculine nature and a feminine nature. If there's no nature to exploit, then none of that works. And that's really what I go after here. If you want to say it's the Jews, if you want to say it's communists, if you want to say it's the Rockefellers, if you want to say whatever your preferred conspiracy theory is, great, go explore that all you would like. But what I explore here is the intersectional dynamics behind all of this. So there you go. And then what do I got here? Norman says that's just it. We need more male teachers. Yes, it would be great if we could do that. But what's the incentive, Norm? What's the incentive? Like, how are you going to get male? I
wouldn't do it. I mean, even if I was unemployed and you offered me $200,000 a year, I still wouldn't teach. Mm-hmm. It's a shitty job. They treat you like crap. You have to deal with the worst children ever today versus what you had 20, 30 years ago. Like there's some bad kids in school today with some learning disabilities. They've been born later on in life, rather than, parents having them in the 20s or early 30s. There's kids showing up in school that were born to like 47-year-old moms that had IVF 3 times.
Right.
You end up with all kinds of problems, and then you can't discipline them. Like you can't say or do anything. So why would guys want to sign up for that?
Because first of all, we're a super litigious society right now. And also I think that one of the reasons why we're not allowed to do those things or actually have some sort of punishment, any kind of punishment, is first of all, people can make all kinds of money off of it. But second of all, is that we have feminized the process. We've feminized education to the point where we don't dare do anything like that. There's I have an infographic. I think after the show I'll put it up on my Twitter feed, but it's why men don't get into teaching right now. And mainly it's because there's no financial incentives for it. You can make a whole lot more money doing pretty much anything else, and you're not going to spend 6 years learning to learn, right? Or learning to teach.
To teach girls. Basically, is what they do.
Right. So think about this. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you're a guy and you take out a student loan. You go, I really have this really burning desire to become a teacher. Great. So what do you want to teach? Oh, I want to teach history. Well, you're going to have a degree in history so you know what you're talking about. Great. Got it. How long did that take? 4 years. Okay. Now I got to learn how to teach. What's that going to take? Well, teaching credentials. How long does that take? Maybe another 2 years, maybe another 3. So you're looking at, let's just say conservatively 6 years doing that. So that you can, so you've got student loans to taking out student loans to do all that great stuff so that you can go work in the public school system for $36,000 a year when you finally get in there. But you're also male. And so because you have a penis, you have to be very careful of what you say, not only to the kids, but also to your staff, the fellow staff members, which are going to be 77% women.
The board, the unions, the parents, it's all run by women.
School district is all going to be run by women. And if you step over the line, if you didn't vote for the right guy, you're probably going to get erased. And so although that 6 years that you spent in school is all gone, and you still have the bill for it, and you're going to have to go find some other way to do it. Most guys aren't going to do that. Most teachers right now are female because it seems like a good idea, and it's all female run. You want to know why? Like, I get this all the time. Like, well, how come we have so many communists in the academia? Well, because you have mostly women in academia. and they're willing to work for start anyways for $36,000 a year. And what are they going to do? They're going to complain about the working conditions. They're going to complain about the money, and rightly so, because there's no money. We will defund our education all day long. So yeah, communism probably sounds like a really good idea to women making, $36,000, maybe $40,000 a year after they have taken out student loans to do that. Did you see Rich, did you see the stat that I think I put it in our private chat on Twitter? What is it? There is, for student loans in the United States, there's $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loans right now.
Oh yeah,
2/3 of that is owned by women.
And you can't go bankrupt on it.
Yeah, 969,000 or $69 million or whatever is $1 billion is the outstanding debt for women. Anyways, it's basically over 2/3. I think is what it was, because it's mostly women that are in school right now that are taking out those loans. So you want to know why women really want to have, their loan forgiveness? They're going to vote for the guy who's all about communitarianism and socialism and maybe communism. Who knows what? Freeism. Yeah, of course they are, because they've
People don't want freedom in the United States. They want free shit. That's what they're voting for.
More or less. Chase says, having studied anthropology, men, particularly in the Western side of the world, don't have a rite of passage into becoming men. Yeah, rites of passage, rituals. Whereas other cultures have initiations such as circumcision by bamboo tears, bambano tears. I don't know what the hell that is.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like fun, but if there's a hazing ritual that people would have a problem with, it must be, I don't know, cutting off your foreskin with bamboo, whatever. I have no idea what
maybe it's a bonobo with a bamboo knife.
Bonobo, yes. And then let me throw this one on here real quick. Chase Tenney says, similarly, like the red pill, you often need to keep your thoughts to yourself when it comes to masculinity. Yeah, particularly if you're a male teacher in public school system. Especially in blue states. Otherwise, you can be attacked just by not just by women, but by feminized men. In fact, I would go one step further, Chase. I would say that you have more to worry about the men than you do about the women.
Yeah, the white knighting is.
Yeah, the white knighting. Like, guys will volunteer to sell you out, whereas women will only sell you. Well, not only, but mostly will sell you out because you cross the line. Whereas like feminized men will go, I don't like that guy. He's a competition. Let's take him out. Let's erase him. I'm gonna talk some shit about this guy and get him erased. We're almost an hour in. I wanted to give you a chance, Rich, to plug your book because you just finished it.
Yeah, it's done. The cover's been designed. I'll share the cover design on Instagram. You guys can follow me there the next day or so. But I just got to do final pass on it, get it uploaded to the various platforms, and we're good to go. Should be out in the next week or two. Let me drop the link here in the chat real quick. If you want to get on the email list, which is the best way to get notified when it's available, it's right there in the chat. So thanks for that.
Yeah, cool.
And I should point out that Rollo did the forward as well.
Yeah, I did. I look forward to it. You're welcome. And my book is coming out very soon as well. I'm gonna continue going here. But whenever you got to leave, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna bounce. Have fun. Enjoy the rest of the show. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
All right. See ya. Thanks, Rich. Cool. That was Rich Cooper. So I wanted to continue on a little bit here. We're at the top of the hour right now, so I'm just going to keep going here. I have a few things that are on my list of things to talk about. I wanted to make sure that I got Rich on there because of the his sort of pushback against the Candace Owens thing. Now, I like Candace Owens. Don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily conservative. I'm certainly not a liberal. I'm just kind of like in the middle of this, and I kind of like to pick things apart, I guess. Oops, there we go. Okay, I just got rid of Rich. Okay, so anyways, I want to talk about a few things here. First one is the crisis of masculinity, and I mentioned this just a little while ago, which is that this has been really a 60-year effort. Now, this is one of the things, Candace, if you're watching, this is one of the things I think that you miss, is that it's not just about this generation. It's not just about what's happened in the last 10 years. It's been happening for at least 60 years, or maybe even before that, but certainly within the last 60 years, we have had a push in feminization of raising men. and raising the next generations of men. And you can say it's deliberate, whatever. I'm not going to say who's at fault or whatever. I'm just saying, let's look at the process here. In her interview with Jocko Willink, she was talking about a series that she was watching on Netflix, which was was it a colorized World War II? And the reason I sort of picked up on that is because I've watched it too. I've watched that thing, and I am always interested when I see like a Veterans Day roll around, or the Memorial for D-Day, or you're looking at these kids who are in these landing craft that are going to go land on like Omaha Beach or whatever, or Normandy, right, all along, and they are 18. Maybe 18. Like some of the kids look even younger than 18, but they really wanted to go over. They really wanted to fight, and they were really just kind of shitting their pants because they're kids basically who went over there and did what they were supposed to do. And now she brought this up and saying, well, it was just different times. And like, yeah, it was different times. It was different times because that generation, and even in World War I, those kids who went to go fight and to die in various wars were raised in a different way. It was a different culture that brought up those generations. And you have to go back. You have to rewind. You have to be brave enough to rewind to see where we're like, how do we get to where we're at? Because you can't just tell guys, man up. You can't just tell guys, take more responsibility. You can't, especially because right now we've systematically removed authority from men. So we have to go back. You have to like rewind the tape all the way back to like, let's just say the boomer generation. And I'm talking like when the boomer generation was like young, was like in their teens or maybe early 20s. And what sort of created that? And what was the result? What was the generational result from the boomer generation to the Generation X? And I realize there's other ones in between there, but I'm just going to go with the major ones. So like the boomer generation, Generation X, Generation Y, millennials, whatever. And then Generation Z, which is my daughter's generation. Like, who are these kids and what are they going to become? And what is the next generation that they're going to raise as well? It's funny to me, like you have like, it's almost like concern trolling particularly from conservative women, but I've heard it from TradCon guys as well, particularly the more religious guys, where it's like, well, what are we going to do? How are we ever going to fight wars? Blah, blah, blah. Well, the answer to that is always going to be like, well, we're not going to have wars, right? Because women are going to run countries, and we'll never have wars if feminists just ran the government. We'll never have. We'll all live in this, communitarian utopia if women just had the reins of power. It's just it's a fantasy. It's an egalitarian fantasy. It's an equalist fantasy. If you've read any of my books, you know what I'm talking about, egalitarian equalism. I don't think I've ever done a show about egalitarian equalism. Chase, what did you say here? He says, Rollo, my father wanted me to comment to you on your book on Audible. He said it would be real nice if you got a better narrator. Well, whatever. I like Sam. Dude's voice is very robotic. Well, Sam's an announcer, and I really like Sam's voice, and Sam Bada is in the chat, and he is the mod right now. So there you go. You can bring it up with Sam. How's that? Tell your dad to go talk to Sam. Norman Van Christoph says, we should explore this male teacher concept more. Okay. I think we as men can handle the money issue and dealing with bad kids. We should be able to. That's one thing I was going to talk about, by the way, Norman, was that, did I get everybody? Yeah, I did. Oh, I got one more. Was that I wish there was some incentive. I wish there was I wish we would put more incentivization. I wish we would put more of place more of an importance of putting men into education, into the educational system, rewarding men for doing that, making it a status symbol, saying I'm a teacher, right? Wouldn't it be great if like you were a dude and you spent, like I said, you spent 4 years learning your craft, learning how to teach, getting your teaching credentials, and at the end of it, you were paid like you started at $80,000 a year, something like that. I don't know. And you were treated like a rock star, and women wanted to tear your clothes off because you go, "Hey, I'm a teacher," and women go, "Oh, really? Wouldn't it be great if we did something like that? God, if we incentivized it in some way, whether it's socially or there's no way to do it. I understand. This is just me just spitballing right here. I know that this is not going to happen. But wouldn't it be great if we did that? Because and I mean, I'm not going to get all philosophical on you, but wouldn't it be great if you could do something like that where we say, this is the rewards, this are the incentives for you as a man to get into teaching? Because for the most part, and I don't ask me how I know, because I'm not going to tell you, but like I know people who are in the education system who will say exactly this, like, we need guys in here, but no men want to teach, because first of all, there's no chance of getting laid. And there's even a greater chance of you getting accused of something. And then at the end of it all, you have, even if you don't, you're not making that much money. And so you say, well, I'm a teacher and it's a great and noble cause. But then then you got guys who are creating, teachable classes and going and making, $100,000 a month, or OnlyFans girls. I think what's funny is like OnlyFans is the number one career choice for young women right now. And so why get into anything when you can just show off your ass and guys will pay you all kinds of money for it? Why get into, even women, why get into teaching? Who cares? I can make so much more money doing this. I can be a quote unquote sex worker, and I can do it from the comfort of my own homes. Why would I do anything else? It's a similar, I'm not saying guys are going to do this, but it's a similar concept. Why would I go take on that risk? Why would I take on the financial liabilities of, getting a student loan or doing whatever, spending this time, when in the 6 years that it took me to get my teaching credentials and to become a teacher, and all the money that it cost to become that teacher, I could be using that time to, I don't know, become a businessman, become whatever, become a surgeon. I don't know, become a surgeon, become something that you're going to make a lot more money doing. Why would I do that? Why would I opt for that? You might love it. You might have a real passion for teaching, but at the end of the day, you're not rewarded for it. And you're going to live a lesser life, but you're going to live a different kind of life, because you chose teaching instead of, I don't know, learning how to hustle online, right? Sell a fitness program, sell this program, sell that program. Why would you do that when you don't even need a degree to do something like that? I think in the future you're going to see, and realize this sounds really cynical and really pessimistic, but I think that in the future you're going to see more and more, certainly women, but like men as well, who are going to go, why would I go to this college, or why would I even go to a college when I can take those classes online, and I can do these, even if I wanted to get a degree in psychology or science or this or whatever, I can take it online. That's another thing. Psychology, 86% of psychology graduates in the United States, female. Women. Communications, women. Health and human resources, women. It's not construction workers. It's not guys who are out there. It's not laborers. It's not what was it? You're one. I'll come back to this. I want to hit this first. Adam says, I noticed night and day difference after dating apps widely proliferated around 2016. Okay. I went from spinning plates to having a hard time. Global sexual marketplace, heavy female friends, 100 matches. Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. Kind of off topic, but I 100% understand what you're getting into. And it's not even dating apps. It's Instagram. It's social media. Even if there were no dating apps, people would find ways to leverage social media to be their dating apps. What'd you say, Delam? I gave you my word, 10% of the profits of the Red Man Rising from the Manosphere. Thank you for reviewing it. Yep, thank you. Cool deal. Thanks, Delam. I read his book, by the way. Maybe we can teach, Chris Herrera, maybe we can teach by success and example. Okay, that's where actually where I was going with this, but let me continue. The recommended then recommend Rollo's books, videos, etc. when they ask. That's how they can teach their own kids. I've done so with a few people in my job where 80% of the workforce are men. Okay, so here's what I was going to say, Chris, is that educating the next generation isn't just learning academics in school. I think that it needs to be some like, and I hate to use this term, but it's multi-generational education. It's multi-generational teaching. And we need to get to a point, I think, and this is just me, again, now I'm being optimistic, is I think that red pill men, red pill parents, if you've read my third book, which is Positive Masculinity, I talk about this quite a bit. So if you want some more details, I'm just going to sort of give you the brief version of this right now. But we need what's called multi-generational mentorship. We need guys to mentor the next generation. We need guys to, I don't care how old you are. If you're red pill and guys ask me all the time, like, how do I red pill my son? How do I red pill my brother? How do I red pill my dad? How do I, as if it's a verb, right? How do I unplug them? How do I get them to think in a different way? How do I get them to how do I get them to avoid the mistakes that I made myself? How do I get them to read your book, right? Well, you have to wait for your moments. Again, it's triage. So you have to save those who you can. You try to save the ones you can, and then you let the ones that you can't, just let them do their thing. Hopefully at some point they'll come to you and say, hey, remember when you were talking about this? That's your moment, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people have to learn through trauma. But it's not just about like teaching the next generation of guys about intersexual dynamics. It is also about teaching them why they think the way that they think. And that's where I was going with Candace Owens, is she understands the symptoms. Like Harry Styles dresses like a woman. He wears makeup, blah, blah, blah. We have the most pussified mangina generation of human history. Yeah, you're 100% right about that, Candace, 100%. What you're wrong about is how we got to that point and how we can change that and how we can unlearn that. You're not going to pray it away. You're not going to pray away human nature. You're not going to pray away man's nature and women's nature. That's not going to happen. And all of these pleas for guys, just, you need to man up. Everybody needs to man up. Everybody has a version of man up. Even the left has a version of man up. It's really pussified, sure. But everybody has a version of man up. It is take responsibility. That was what you wanted, like Elijah Woods, right? He doesn't know he doesn't know what manhood entails. That's by design. Candace, the reason why Elijah Wood is confused about this, it's by design. He's supposed to be stupid about it. He's supposed to be confused about it. He's supposed to be subjective to him because he doesn't know anything else. It's never been taught to him. He's never learned anything else. What makes a man? I don't know. He can say this until he's blue in the face. Like he had I wish I would have had it up here. I should have probably gone and dug it up, but he had a response. Elijah Wood, of all people, responding to Candace Owens about, masculinity doesn't make the man. Well, what does, man? What, Elijah Wood, what does make the man? Tell me that right now. Tell me what you think makes the guy. Oh, vulnerability. No, that makes for a pussy that Candace is talking about. It's not subjective. There is a conventional definition of masculinity. What is it? Tell me what it is. Is there a convention? Is there a conventional definition of masculinity? Is there a conventional definition of femininity? I believe that there is. But for the last 60 years, we have done everything societally possible to obfuscate, to blur the line, to say, guys, you could just be whatever you want. Here, this is masculinity. Be whatever you want to be. It's whatever you want. That's what it is. It's blurring that whole thing. It's erasing ritual. It's erasing rites of passage. You want to know why all those kids were ready to go and throw down in Europe, in the European theater, or hell, even in the Pacific? Go watch the Pacific. You think Band of Brothers was a good movie, or a good series? Go watch the Pacific, man. Those guys had to know their shit, and they were thrown into the meat grinder like almost immediately in Guadalcanal and other places like that, just from what I know. But that was a different generation. Why? Because they had a definitive understanding of what it was to be a man. We don't have that anymore, and that's by design. And it's been by design for at least the last 4 or 5 generations. It's been the design. Well, who's doing the designing? Well, it doesn't matter who's doing the designing. It just matters of how you're going to understand how we got there and how you're going to unlearn that and how you're going to teach the next generation of men to be men, you want to say, well, men need to take responsibility. Okay. Teach them why they need to take responsibility, because most guys, like Elijah Wood, don't know what masculinity is. It's subjective. I watched this, I think it's an organization of some sorts. They got a few videos out and they're talking about like, these masculine issues or issue. It wasn't the Good Man Project. It was our We Are Man Enough. That's what it was called. It was a video series. I don't know if it's still around anymore, but I can remember back in like 2017, 2018, I was just becoming aware of it. And I forget the guy who's the main spokesman of it, but he's done some TED talks, some TEDx talks about how he gave up on masculinity, how he's just so confused about it. And it just doesn't relate to me. And I don't know what it is. And it's like, you talk to these guys and you ask the average guy on the street what it means to be a man, and they don't have any idea. I mean like multiple generations. Well, you got to be responsible. You got to do this. You got to do that. They won't even tell you, because they'll say, well, I don't know. I've never really felt like that, or I don't know. And it always comes back to emotionalism. It always comes back to feeling. It's always because, well, a man is whatever he wants to be. Well, that what happens when that is not defined for you, when there's no, you want to know why we have such a rudderless lost boys generation? No purpose. Exactly this. We haven't said this is a definitive, this is what a man does, this is what a woman does, because we're scared shitless to do that. God forbid we do that, because if we say something like that, we get erased. You don't get hired. You don't get a job. You get expelled from school. You don't make any money, whatever it is. If you have a strong opinion about like gender, you get James Damord, right? Oh, men and women are different. You're fired from Google. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Here's your pink slip. Here's your walking papers, brother. But I just said that men and women are different. Oh, get them out of here. We can't have that kind of divisiveness. And really what it comes down to is social constructionism, because we have for the last 60 years decided that gender and sex and everything else, like men and women, we're all just the same, right? It's the blank slate equalism that I talk about in a lot of my books, that men and women are just the same, and we have the same potential, and we're all equal, and that's you want to know why feminism is always about equality. That's why. It's an equality that will never be achieved, because we don't live in an equal world, and we're not equal people. We're not equal beings. We might have the equal value under God. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay. But when people tell me about equality, like they get really pissed off when I say, and I said this on the Charlie and Ben podcast too, is I don't believe in equality. Not in the way that it's defined today and has been defined for quite some time, but really certainly not the way it is today. And people go, he doesn't believe in equality. He must be like a white supremacist, or he must be a male supremacist, or a misogynist, or a chauvinist, or this, or whatever it is, right? No, I don't believe in the definition of equality that mainstream society has been fronting for decades now, because equality is not what you think it is. It'd be nice if we could all be equal, but we're not. And we're all born equal. But what you do from that point is up to you. And you know what? That means not being equal with people. It'd be nice to have this egalitarian or equal partnerships. No, we're not. That's not how human beings work. We're tribal, and we have hierarchies. Certainly men do. But that's not even what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like when it comes to equality, it's not about like equality of opportunity or equality of outcome. It's the idea that we live in a vacuum. And that's really when people say, if you believe in feminism, then you believe in equality. No, you believe in female supremacism is what you believe in. But the idea of equality is a failed idea, because it is founded in blank slate equalism. It's founded in social constructionism. And it presumes one huge fallacy, which is that everything exists in a vacuum. What are we talking about that makes us equal or makes us unequal? So if I say, well, I'm male, I have a penis, I don't have a vagina or a uterus or anything like that. So, and I really want to have a child. Oh, it's so horrible and so unequal. Well, we can pretend and make up some cock and bull story about like how we, well, men can have babies too. No, you can't. No, it is an unequal situation because we're different, and it's okay. Really, it's okay. I have a deep voice. Okay, well, I want to have a higher voice. Well, sorry, you're a man. You have testosterone. Well, you can find some scientific way to get around that, maybe, but it's unequal. If that's the goal, like, what's the goal? What's the challenge? What's the achievement? What's the end state goal that I want to achieve? If I have limitations for it, physically or socially or whatever it is, guess what? Things aren't equal, and they're not going to be equal. And you know what? That's a good thing, because if everything were equal, we'd all be androgynous. If everything were equal, we would all stagnate. We would end up, there's no what is it? In a state of nature, things that stay stagnant end up going extinct because they have an inability to adapt, because they presume that the state of environment, that operative state, the environment is always going to stay in one state, homeostasis, right? It's going to stay one way all the time, and we're all going to live these great lives. And it's like, no, it's the challenges, it's conflict, it's the inequality, the inequality that makes for great stories, that makes us better people, that makes us grow, that makes us build civilization. But if you're going to talk about equality, get the fuck out of here, because there is no such thing as equality, because equality implies a vacuum. End of story. Yeah, that's my speech on equality. Let me catch up here. AI says, women get rid of masculine men in the workplace. Look at firehouses today with women. Either you toe the line or women simp. Well, okay, so here's that's another good one. AI, whatever your name is like women in the military, like combat roles. Well, how do we get women in the combat roles? We want it to be more equal. No, that's not equality, because in that situation, because the theater of combat is an unequal, chaotic environment. And if you're not capable of being violent, of having the physical capabilities to do what you need to do in those situations, or the mental capabilities in certain instances, then you're not going to function as well as somebody else. Men and women have natural proclivities. That everything that I get into really kind of comes when it comes to intersexual dynamics, but certainly when it comes to like gender equality or even the concepts of gender, it always comes back to blank slate equalism. The blank slate is a lie. It is false. And just like in the Matrix, right? The system will fight you when you try to get back to the source. You want to know why Candace Owens gets pissed off at Harry Styles? It's because she's really mad at blank slate equalism. A blank slate equalism that encourages a kid of Harry Styles' age and says, oh yeah, why don't you go dress up like a woman? Well, you're a guy. You're never going to you're never going to be a woman unless you decide to go get a sex change. I mean, that's another thing is transsexual, transgender stuff right now. It's more advantageous to be a woman than it is to be a boy. Well, why do you think that, Rollo? Well, I don't think that, but society and a westernized social order that believes in the blank slate certainly leans that way. 78% of teachers are going to be female. They're going to teach your little 5-year-old little boy to understand, just like Rich was saying, it's more advantageous. It's right. It's correct to live like a girl, to act like a girl, to think like a girl, to learn like a girl. It's correct. That's why people have asked me this before. When we talk about female correctness, what do you mean? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Harry Styles. It's better to be a girl. It's better to do these things. It's better to wear makeup. It's better to be RuPaul, right? It's better to be a 9 or 11-year-old drag queen. How do I know that? Well, because when Cuties came out and people lost their mind about sexualizing these little girls who were like 9 years old, 8, 9 years old, or whatever, and Muslim little girls on Netflix, people lost their minds about it. When a little boy of 8, 9, 10, 11 years old decides to dress up in drag, we put him on Good Morning America, and Michael Strahan goes, yeah, it's bold and courageous. That's how I know. That's how I know it's more advantageous to be a little girl or a woman or female to experience the female experience in life. It's more advantageous. That's the message anyways, to experience that and to be like that than it is to be a man, to be a boy, to be whatever, because it's toxic. As I said before, being a man, being male is wrong. That's what that's what we're taught anyways. I'm not saying that myself. I'm just saying that's the societal message. I remember when it almost seems quaint to think about these things now, but like I can remember back in 2017, and this like was personal to me because I live in Nevada, but like I remember when the Las Vegas shooting happened, and it was at Mandalay Bay, and the guy like took out two rooms and just opened fire down on a big like a country music event. Largest mass shooting in American history. I think still to this day it is. And we don't know jack shit about like what happened. Oh, no, never mind. You didn't see anything. We still don't have any answers. We still don't even ask the questions. What happened with all of that stuff? But in the wake of that, we had, of course, the first thing out of anyone's mouth was like, oh, well, we need gun control. Okay, well, let's get past gun control. So that's going to happen for like 2 days, maybe 3 days. We'll talk about gun control. We'll talk about how we need to ban assault rifles or bump stocks or whatever it is. That was the hot button issue or whatever. Really kind of meaningless. And then we get into, well, how come all these shooters are white men? That's the next thing. And then the next thing after that is usually, well, if this guy had been loved more, or if it's like Nicholas Cruz, or it's like a high school shooter or something like that. Well, if he would have just been loved more, if he hadn't been brought up to think guns or masculinity is this way or that way or whatever, and so it ends up the narrative becomes masculinity is bad, or it's not. So this kid was taught toxic masculinity. No, he wasn't. He was taught like any other boy was, or in the case of the shooter, whatever. The reason I brought up the shooter is because what happened in the wake of that was it went to the toxic masculinity side of things, and then the narrative actually changed, which kind of surprised me in 2017, because it went from toxic masculinity to masculinity is toxic. So there's no good masculinity. All masculinity is bad masculinity. Anything that is in any way associated with math. And let me tell you something. When you start saying masculinity is bad, you have to have a definitive definition for it at that point. It's no longer subjective. Remember what I was saying before, how the left and the right have to sort of like figure out what the subjective definitions for themselves are going to be about. What's Elijah Wood? What's masculinity? People get confused when I say, well, both sides. There is actually a definitive, conventional definition of what makes a man, what makes a woman. What is the definition of being like? What makes a man? What makes a man? What makes a woman? Well, when people get shot up, you'll hear the left say, well, masculinity itself is toxic. Okay, Mr. Toxic, masculinity is toxic. Tell me what it means to be a man. They'll have a very concrete answer for you. That's these guys are just, who want to be like Jocko Willink or Willink, right? He wants to give you wedgies, and he's the jock in school that beats you up, and he's a bully, and he's what makes a man? A man is a guy who beats the hell out of girls and is bad and is Homer Simpson, or is an abuser, is incompetent, is ridiculous, is whatever. They have a definitive idea, at least in their heads, of what they want to be against. Not what they want to be for, but what they want to be against. And it went from toxic masculinity to masculinity is toxic. And it started right around October, that's when it happened, of 2017. And here we are 3 years later. And we're still asking the same questions. What's a man? What makes a man? What makes you a man? Well, it's either confused or it's demonized. So when you have generation after generation of young men, and I'm not just like mine, but like the boomer generation, Generation Y, millennials, whatever, they don't know they couldn't give you a distinct answer anyways. You want to know why like so many guys like really took to a guy like Jordan Peterson, It's because he at least said, make your bed, son, clean your room, do something. You want purpose, give yourself purpose, kind of thing. Well, the reason that they're purposeless in the first place is because they don't know what's expected of them. They don't know what responsibility is. And it's not about like, oh, grow up. It's not about man up. It's about understanding conventional masculine maleness, right? What does it mean to be a male human being on planet Earth in 2020 or 1970 for that matter? And it's been confused by design. It's been obfuscated. It's been demonized by design. And that's where we're at, Candace. That's where we're at right now. And so to say that, well, if you just took more responsibility, things would be different. Like I know Turd Flinging Monkey's done these videos before. I've done them myself. I don't know how many other ways like I can say this or TFM can say this or whoever can say this, is that it's not about responsibility. It's about authority. And you're never going to have guys, because we have generations of guys who would know what to do with the authority if they had it. If he said, okay, gentlemen, you now have authority over women, they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't accept it because they've been brought up for the better part of a lifetime to think that everything should be even Steven, right? We're all equal partners. I wouldn't want that because they've been told from day one that, we're all equal and we should all strive for equality and we all should be male feminists and we all should be like Elijah Wood or Harry Styles, right? You define for what happens is when you make masculinity subjective, you destroy the meaning of whatever masculinity is. If you make it into a social construct, you can make masculinity whatever the hell you want it to be. It can be the most feminine thing in the world. But what happens is that when you do that and you go, okay, screw it. I'm going to be me, right? I'm going to let my freak flag fly. I'm going to be effeminate and I'm going to call it masculinity. What happens is then when women see that, they're on some root level, on some evolved level, when they see that guy wearing lipstick and makeup, they don't want to have sex with that guy. They want to go to the salon together. Remember when I said this, remember when I said this, how women have boyfriends and girlfriends, and if you're not fucking her, you're her girlfriend? If you effeminize yourself to a certain degree, you will never be anything other than a girlfriend. She will, because what happens is like on some root level, on some hindbrain, lizard brain level, women see that, how you talk, how you present yourself, and they see that and they see you as a woman. They're unconscious, they're subconscious, limbic level, see you as a woman, see you as a girlfriend. You can be as feminine as you want. You say, well, what about guys who are feminine? What about guys who, about all those glam rockers I got laid in the 80s? Yeah, well, that was a thing for a while, and then it wasn't a thing. What about rockers? And okay, well, we can talk about like the emotionally satisfying part of being with sort of this emo project that women want. You want to know why women love guys who are like the struggling, torturing artists? Is because they're projects. There's something to figure out. There's something that women want to use their intuition to sort of unravel. Once they do, and they realize, oh, this guy's just a drug addicted fuck, then they go, all right, let's move on to something else. The toy has lost they lose the interest in the toy because they figure out the toy. Once you figure out how to solve the Rubik's Cube, it's like, okay, take this, put it over here, find me another Rubik's Cube. That's what it is. It's very emotionally satisfying for women to do that, because women use their quote unquote female intuition to understand men, or try to understand men. It's actually a survival adaptation. I'll talk about it a little bit. I'm actually considering writing an essay about this, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But like when it comes to you as a man being a challenge, it is usually because that woman uses her what I call the hypergamous filter, which is really synonymous with feminine intuition. And I said in the past that there is nothing that is more self-satisfying for a woman than to think that she's figured out a man using her feminine intuition. It's satisfying because that feminine intuition, that hypergamous filter, is a survival, an evolved survival adaptation that's necessary to figure out if that guy is somebody she wants to mate with or have children with or just have a fling with or to whatever. And the reason why it's so satisfying, emotionally satisfying, and indignation, it's like exhilarating, right? Is because it's like this mystery. It's like, oh, okay, he's being mysterious. That's, you want to know why did mystery even call himself mystery? Because if you're a challenge to a woman and you make a little bit more of you, it's like what I call the breadcrumb theory. If you give a little bit of reward to her and she complies with, she wants to have sex with you, well, you give her a little bit more. You're not vulnerable. Don't be vulnerable. Don't be emotionally available. She does something, I understand this is operant conditioning, but she does something that you like, then you give her a little morsel, a little breadcrumb that sort of keeps the little bird following along where you want it to go. Well, if you just give it, okay, here you go. Here's me. You give it to a woman all at once. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye. See you later. I figured you out. Well, the puzzle's done, right? Instead of like giving piece of the puzzle each time, little by little, one by one, and little, so that the picture sort of, shows up after a while, and you just go, screw it. Here's the picture. It's already done for you. Here you go, ladies. This is me. Okay, you're boring. Bye. See ya. Even if you're the most exciting guy in the world, there's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to sort of like drag you along. There's no mystery to solve. That's part of the feminine intuition and stuff. I'll write I promise I will write a post. I gotta get a new post on the blog anyways. All right, I'll catch up with you here. Let's see. I already talked to Michael. Did I get you? Oh, here it is. Michael W says this. He says, look, sorry, I would put you on, but it already passed up. Look up the song Masculine Women, Feminine Men from the 1920s by Irving Kaufman. Apparently it's been going on for hundreds of years, probably more. Yeah, well, there's always something about like a guy, and good point. Let's talk about this for a second, because this is one of the problems I've had with Carl Jung for a long time. Is Carl Jung was actually the first guy to come up with like sort of what I called a female identification game. I have a post actually it's a chapter in book 1. It's called Identity Crisis. And for a long time, certainly since the sexual revolution, but like up through the 70s and through the 80s and through the 90s, and really kind of right now, is there's this idea amongst men that if they identify more as women, or more, they identify more with the female experience up to the point of actually becoming like women, dressing and thinking and talking and aping all of the experiences of women, that if they are more alike with the female, they identify with the female experience, like, oh, get in touch with the feminine side. Okay, I'm a competitive guy. I'm going to be the most female guy that I could possibly be, because that'll make me more attractive to women, because clearly that's what they said that they wanted. Carl Jung was the first guy that came up with that. Well, certainly first, maybe he didn't come up with that, but he's the first guy to identify that and use that, because he used that with a lot of his patients, quote unquote patients, who he ended up turning into, I guess, amateur psychologists later on, because he was banging his female patients at that time when he was married to. But it was kind of like, well, get in touch with your feminine side. There's an anima animus. If men would just become, if they would just like become more feminine, or identify with the feminine, or become more sensitive, or become like, get in touch with your feminine side. That's where that all came from. Now, I'm not saying that was all he said, but that's the part that feminism and gynocentrism has run with ever since. So you can make the argument, and maybe rightly so, you can make the argument that it's been bastardized. Yes, okay, maybe. But here's the first one that came up with that. The first guy that says, okay, well, the more alike I am with women, then the more I will have in common with them. The more I am, the more it's the idea that likes attract. Like if I'm more like a woman, and I understand, I share her experiences, and I'm sensitive to her needs, and I listen to what she's saying, and I'm emotionally available, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm always, if I become more like a woman, then women will like me more, right? Because I'm more like them. because I'm not ostracizing them. I'm not kicking them out of man world. I'm actually coming over into their way of communicating even. So if I learn as a man, like, well, if my natural proclivity is to be overt in my ways of like living and say what I mean what I say, I'm more masculine than anything else. And I go, okay, sorry, I'm going to put that off and I'm going to come over to your way. And I'm going to be covert in my communications. I'm going to be more sensitive. I'm going to be more effeminate. I'm going to wear makeup. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm just going to like wear, skinny jeans or whatever else. I'm going to try to look a little bit more like women so that they'll like me more. And there's, if you go and you read, Robert Greene's Art of Seduction, there's actually a part in there where, this is a technique. I'm not saying this is the whole book, but there's a technique there that says, become more like a woman, like think like a woman. Now, I disagree with that, particularly now, because it's what's expected. Guys are more feminine than they are masculine today. Conventionally so anyways. More guys today lean towards the idea of egalitarian equalism because they've been brought up as if they are defective girls. They've been brought up from the time they were little kids to believe that being a girl is correct. Being more female is correct. Thinking like a little girl. And later on, being more sensitive and acting more effeminate is the way that we should all be, because then we'll have a much better society if we do all those things. Most guys today, you want to know why masculine guys stand out right now? Is because, or even like back in the old pickup artist days, the reason why guys who would drop neg hits on girls stood out is because everyone else was like, can I buy you a drink, baby? Right? Can I kiss your ass? Can I put you on a pedestal? Can I worship you? Can I, can I make you more and me less? Guys who get married, who self-deprecate all the time, who say, well, look, she's my better half. That's that mentality. I got to be more. I got to lift her up. I got to build her up. She's got to support. I got to support her needs. I got to make myself less so that she is more. That's the basic idea. Anyways, I'm not saying that they think that, but that's the mentality. Is if I depreciate myself, I self-deprecate, that means I'm appreciating her and lifting her up. Women hate that, but that's what they're used to. It's a purple cow theory. You got this sea of like black, gray, brown cows, and then one cow in there is the purple cow. That purple cow is the PUA that goes, why don't you buy me a drink? That purple cow is the one that drops a neg hit. That purple cow is the one that is the guy that uses amused mastery and cocky funny and all these things that she's not expecting, because so many guys fall all over themselves because they think that if they don't identify, if they don't become more like a woman, then women won't like them. And God forbid that happens, because then they won't be able to solve their reproductive problem. So they associate reproducing, on a base level, they were getting laid, let's just say, having sex with a woman. And if they finally, if the clouds part and the fates smile upon them, they get laid, that God forbid they would ever do anything to ruin that. I don't want to screw anything up, so I want to make sure I got to pedestalize her all the time. Well, after a while, you're not a mystery anymore, and you're not a challenge anymore. But the guy who says, why don't you buy me a drink, or drops a neg hit or whatever, runs some like schmaltzy PUA stuff, that worked. Why? Because nobody was doing it. Nobody had the balls to do it. To go and say like, oh, to run the risk of actually earning a woman's disapproval. Not only is that attractive to women, but it stands out. That's why they used to, anyway. I don't know if they do now, but like, that's why that kind of stuff used to work. It was a purple cow effect. Oh, here's a guy who has and he's not all that good looking, but he certainly has the balls enough to tell me, to get me to qualify to him rather than him qualify to me, because that's how it used to work since the 70s, since the late 60s into early 2000s. Hey, baby, can I buy you a drink? No, you can't, because you're kissing my ass. I want a guy whose ass I have to kiss, who I have to qualify for. That's what women wanted. And that's what PUA gave, or at least did an end run around that. Maybe it didn't actually give it to them, but it certainly aped the behaviors of a guy who was, a high value guy. What is a high value guy to a woman? Well, a guy that doesn't kiss their ass. A guy who has enough confidence in themselves that says, if I screw it up with this girl, it doesn't matter because I got 10 more that are willing to go and bang me right now. That's why. But where does all that come from? Why is it that the more common thing, the brown cows in the big herd of cows, and you're the purple cow, right? The brown cows all say, well, we got to make sure that we do everything for women, and we got to make them feel special, and we got to have date night, and we got to lift them up and make us less, and we got to be more emotional and more vulnerable and more emotional and and we do that for generation after generation after generation. And you know what happens at the end of that generation? You get Harry Styles and you get Candace Owens going, I don't understand. Delam, what did you say? Cross-cultural. My wife and her family is Iranian. My wife's mother responds to me and never her husband. Even her husband defers to me. So your content is so accurate. Well, thank you, Delam. Well, again, what is it that defines a guy, right? I'll come back to you here in just a second. I got some other ones to get to as well. I'm trying to stay on top of my super chats because one of the reasons why I end up doing these 3-hour long live streams that everybody hates so much is because I go back. I think part of the reason is I keep going back to these. Oh, wait. Facundo Rosato. He says, then is there a definition of masculinity or what it is to be a man? Yes, but we'll get to that. I was just about to hit that. Or is just the sum of every subject discussed in the manosphere? Could you give one? Okay, here we go. I wrote it down. So what makes a guy? Well, the problem is defining what is conventionally masculine and what is conventionally feminine is always going to be subjective because that's all we've ever known. That's all any generation for the last 5 generations has ever known. So if I say a man is strong, a man has muscles, a man has testosterone, a man grows a beard, right? A man has a lower voice. That's a masculine trait. That is a physical. You want to know, there is one conventional thing that makes man testosterone. A predominance of testosterone, serum testosterone in a man makes a man a man. Well, what about just having a penis? Well, there's plenty of guys who have penises or that would call themselves men that we wouldn't say, well, that guy's really subjectively is not a man. Okay, well, you could say, well, there's a physical characteristics. Okay, that could be a conventional way of defining it. I'm just going to throw this one out there, and because it's an easy illustration. So if you have a lower voice because you have testosterone, if you have broader shoulders, if you have more muscle mass, if you have more body mass, odds are you're conventionally masculine. You're a guy. Now, are all men like that? No. And the reason why we say that, or we keep coming back to that is, or we want to give exceptions to the rule. It's called whataboutism. The reason we resort to whataboutism is because we want to find some way to subjectively define that to sort of fit who we are. Are there men that have higher voices? Yeah. I don't sound like Barry White. Let's get on. I could make myself sound like Barry White. Let me see. No, I won't do it. I can make myself like Beavis.
We're never gonna score. We're never gonna score.
Yeah, I can make that. That's not a man, right? But let's just. I mean, there are certain physical traits that define masculinity that are, that we would say are conventional. Now, here's what's going to happen. If I say, well, a man is a guy who is burly and muscular and it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, there's women that look like that. There's female humans that look like that. So therefore, that shouldn't be the defining factor. No, it should. That's a masculinized female. That's a female that looks like a man. Well, she's a woman. She's every bit a woman. No, in your subjective determination, yes. You can that's the whole problem. That's how you get Elijah Woods, right? Because manhood is confused. What makes a man a man? Well, Elijah Wood probably thinks he's a man. Do you guys think he's a man, or is he a hobbit? I shouldn't say that. I like Elijah Wood. I just think he's confused. I like Candace Owens. I think she's very much confused as well. She just doesn't have a grasp on why, how we got to where we're at. Elijah Woods, likewise, does not have an idea of what conventional masculinity is. So when I was watching, and I have my notes here, I'm just going to read a few things off here. What, having a lower voice, having manifestations of a higher level of serum testosterone in a healthy adult human male, men have anywhere between 12 and 17 times the amount of testosterone in their bloodstream than women do. That, of course, leads to a lower voice, facial hair, broader shoulders. Hopefully you've got a good chin. I don't know. Depends on, what it is. There's physical manifestations. It's easy to do that. But again, as I said before, is that it's too easy to say that, well, if that's what makes a man, then women can be men too, right? No, that's a social construct. You have to have a definitive break. There has to be a distinction between what makes a man conventionally masculine and what makes a woman conventionally feminine. There has to be those things. And we have to say, okay, this is what it is, and this is what we're sticking to. Because if we don't do that, then you get this just panoply, I guess, of different, like that's how you get like 68 different genders. No, there's only 2 genders and there's only 2 sexes. I realize that is a very dangerous thing to say today, but it's only dangerous because we have been acculturated in a Western society that is dependent on the blank slate and social constructionism, those 2 things. When you take those away, when you kick those pillars out from under the stool, the whole stool collapses. Then you don't have confusion. Then you don't have purposeless men. When you give them definitive, concrete answers. So I looked at this and I thought about this because I was watching the interview with Candace Owens and Jocko Willink, and I wrote a few things down. I also said, being a man is wrong, which is the demonization of things. I'll explain to you why that is here in just a second, but. Men are either abusers, they are incompetent, or they are ridiculous, or they're gay, right? That's the old, those are your 4 choices pretty much is to be a man today. You're never allowed to have anything. Just the question like what would, could you give us one definitive thing about men that make them men? Well, I can't in a society or in a social order that is dependent on blank slate equalism and social constructionism. Take those away, and I can give you all kinds of concrete answers to that question. But I can't do it if the debate is contextually mired in the idea that we're all the same and that we all have equal potential, and there's no such, men can be just as, they can be mothers and have babies and have periods, right? If you're gonna subscribe to that madness, there is no definitive answer, and that's the way they want it. That's the way that mindset wants it, anyways. Manual labor and masculinity does not necessarily equal masculinity. One of the first things that I listened to when I was watching the interview with Jocko and Candace is they instantly go to old school like masculinity. They instantly go to what they think ought to be men's responsibilities. So and rightly so. In this case, anyways, Jocko Willink says, well, the men who are out there, on the power lines, it's men who are out there. It's men who are doing, the crabbing and fishing, right? Or it's men that are working in raw sewage and construction and electronics and STEM fields. And he's right, 100% right. Women don't want to get into that. They want to get into rewarding careers, right? Human resources and health and psychology, and they get mad because they can't be, Fortune 500 board members in big companies, although that's changing too, particularly in California. Like big companies, actually, I think any company are not allowed to have more than so many like male members on it, which is completely ridiculous and ludicrous. And people are going to flee that state to go start businesses elsewhere as a result of that, because it is not, if it was about equality, it would not be about gender. But that's again, that's why it's sort of a specious argument to say that, well, women are we need more gender balance in government. Well, in the United States, and I think this is really interesting, is we still don't know who the president is, but we know damn well that 12 Republican women got into the House and defeated their Democratic opponents. That we're happy to run up the flagpole and toot our trumpets about, but we still don't know if it's Biden or it's Trump. And I'm like, I was looking at that, and that's another example of the sisterhood uberalis, which is it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican or independent or green or whatever. It makes no difference. As long as you have a vagina, that's a victory. That's struck a blow for equality. No, what that is that sexism and real and the idea that we need more women in there rather than qualified individuals, which would make sense. But emotionally, it feels really good that women are there now. And for feminized men, they feel really good about the same thing. So anyways, I'm watching this thing. And of course, Jocko Willink talks about, we don't really appreciate men because they're the ones that are keeping America together, right? Like duct tape, and baling wire. There's men, and then we're going to keep the truckers are mostly men. Yeah, you're right. Is that a masculine? Well, all it would take is one female trucker. And social constructionism goes, well, that doesn't make you a man. Just being a trucker doesn't make you a man because there's female truckers. What about combat? 99.6% of the infantrymen in the United States, or the infantry people, because we can't even say man anymore, but infantry people are male. But there's one woman who got into the Green Berets, or there's one woman who got into special forces, or there's one woman who's actually carrying a gun into combat. And so therefore it's not male anymore. Isn't that an interesting dynamic that all we have to do is say, well, this is a conventionally, traditionally, male role, combat. I wrote that down here. That's combat. A propensity for violence is a masculine trait, because that's what testosterone leads men to do. We have more aggression. We have more muscle mass. We're built for combat. I have a really great stat paper. I think I got it from a research paper. It was like they did all these I think it was an evolutionary psychology thing that said that or it shows all of the different ways that men were built to beat the shit out of each other, like greater jaw strength, or bone density and upper body strength is another one, and just the capacity to throw a punch accurately with force. That's a masculine trait. That's a conventionally masculine trait. That's a manly thing to do. Well, a woman could do it too. I saw in G.I. Jane how a woman just busted a guy in the chops, man. He went down like a sack of potatoes. Yeah, and I'm sure that's a great fantasy. In reality, though, that woman is not even going to get close to a guy who is big enough to beat the crap out of her. She's going to go call 10 other guys to beat the crap out of him, but she's not going to throw a punch at him. And if she does, it's because she's drunk. And the bouncer's right there and pushes her out the door, right? Oh, you're a beast, Combat, war. When you go and you look at men's capacity to make war on another tribe or another nation or another family, whatever, another person, that's a masculine thing. Or even in some cultures, particularly like in gang cultures, if you're not willing to go and shoot a cop, if you're not willing to go start a fight or get your ass kicked, I don't know. I want to say it was the Crips that used to do this, but it was, I'm from Southern California, but they used to beat the crap out of a kid. Like a kid's 13, 14 years old. And to be in the gang, you had to get there and you can't fight back. You have to get your ass kicked and just beat into the ground. In some cases, come pretty close to becoming hospitalized. And then you're in the gang. Go shoot a cop. Remember that video that was just out not too long ago? I think it was probably in South Central LA. Looked like a girl, but it was a young kid, goes up, points a gun right in a cop car, pulls a trigger and runs. You're in the gang. That's a rite of passage. It's a pretty ugly one, pretty brutal and vicious one. That's a rite of passage. There's other rites of passage, probably better ones, but I think what's happened right now is when we talk about rites of passage and when we talk about going from being sort of into boyhood into manhood, we intentionally, do you want to know why why we don't have those anymore? We don't have bar mitzvahs. We don't have rituals. We don't have those. It's because we don't understand masculinity anymore. We don't understand. We think of we can't see a masculine ritual without thinking it's bullying or it's hazing, like military hazing. I asked Ryan about this a while ago. I think it was when you cross the equator and you're in the Navy and you have to do like the King Poseidon or King Neptune ritual or whatever. And like they just, and it's a hazing ritual, but it's like, it's in good nature. You know, you're a shellback or you're a polywog or whatever it is. I don't know what the hell the thing is, but my dad actually had to do. My dad was a Navy man and he told me about that. And you had to go, and they've been doing this for a long time. It's not just, it's not just like a recent thing. I mean, this has been around for a while. You look at it now and you go, oh my God, that's bullying. What are they doing to that poor boy? Well, he's going across the equator. That's what you do. Why do you raise a toast at a wedding? Oh my God, you're raising a toast at a wedding. Why do you cry at a funeral? Why do you give a eulogy at a funeral? You don't have a problem with that, but you have a problem with the ritual of a guy crossing the equator, or a guy joining the military, or a guy even like joining a fraternity or something like that. Even women, like even sororities have, right? You have to be in the sorority, you have to do certain things. I think, I don't know, ladies, maybe you can tell me. But for men, the reason why we do that is because we want to disempower men. We want to take away authority, anything that takes away authority. And I'll tell you, the thing is when it comes to rituals, when it comes to rites of passage, there is no better way to take authority away from men than to make men not understand other men and not be able to communicate, not be able to relate with other men as men, and to doubt themselves, and to get to the point where they self-police, whether it's with themselves or it's with other guys. Have you ever been in a situation where like you're at work, or maybe you're on a sports team, or maybe you're like part of a club or whatever, and it's mostly guys? And if a guy says, oh man, that chick Susie's looking hot, man, those tits are just hitting, man. And then a guy goes, that's not very nice. You shouldn't talk about women like that. You need to change your mind, mister. Boy, sounds really sexy. And it's a guy that's telling you this. I was talking to Rich about this a minute ago. It's guys that police other guys. It's guys that will police themselves, because they think that if they don't, they're not going to get laid. They think that if they're not more alike, you want to talk about how men try to identify with the feminine. They will identify with the feminine to such a degree that they will police your behavior and they will police your thinking. So how do we get a Harry Styles? How do we get to where we're at, Candace? That's how we got there. When it comes to manhood, keep men confused. Keep men doubting themselves. That's why you get Elijah Wood, who, I don't know what a man is. He wouldn't be able to give you a definitive answer about what manhood even entails. I don't know. Masculinity isn't what defines manhood. Well, Elijah Wood, what does? Vulnerability, emotional availability, expressing yourself, let's go and enumerate all of these feminine traits or this emotionalism that have never had anything to do with conventional masculinity up until the last 50 years. And we're going to pretend that you can do that and still call yourself a man. Why? Because men are confused as to what is manhood. And that, again, is by design. And I'll tell you why it's by design. It's by design because if you're confused about manhood, then people can keep that manhood metal away from you. Okay, what makes a man? If I say, well, I'm Rollo Tomassi, you know what makes a man? If you want to be a real man, buy my book. And then then you can call yourself a real man. And you read it and you can call yourself a real man. If I said that, I've never said that, but if I were to say that, you would think I'm a grifter. You would think, oh, this guy's like, he's trying to take me for a ride. What's he talking about? He doesn't know what manhood is. Oh, of course, you would think that today because most guys are confused, right? But if I say, I have this book, or I have this medal, or I have this charm, or I have the manhood certificate over here. And if you think like I do, and if you talk like I do, and you believe like I do, you can have the manhood medal too. You can have the manhood certificate. Now, if I do that, I seem like a grifter and an asshole. But you know what? Women do this all the fucking time. All the time. So when women say, a real man takes care of other men's kids, guess what she's doing? She wants you to think like she does. She wants you to believe a certain way. And if you do, and in this case, it's deny your investment in paternity, then here's the manhood certificate for you. And now you're a man. You're not the stepfather. You're the guy who stepped up. So that makes you a man. You're a man. Here's your manhood. Here's your manhood medal. If you think like this guy does, then you're a man. That's exactly what tradcons do. And it's exactly what liberals do. Same thing. You guys are on the same fucking team when it comes to that. Because if men can be confused about manhood, if men can be confused and make masculinity subjective and make masculinity something that is arbitrary, ambiguous, whatever, and you don't even want to talk to the point where you don't even want to talk to other guys about it, because if you do, then suddenly you'll be a sexist and a misogynist, or you'll be toxically masculine, because we've demonized masculinity for so long. If you even say that, then you're screwed. But what does that make? That makes for a generation of purposeless guys who don't know how to A, interact with other men, and B, don't even know what manhood is. So when somebody comes along and says, a real man loves Jesus, a real man makes six figures, a real man is this, a real man is that, and they hand this off to you and they say, well, you believe like I do, so therefore you're a real man in my book, brother. That's suddenly you've got belonging. Suddenly you've got a tribe. Suddenly people say, oh, that's very cult-like. Well, you could call it a cult. Cult is just a tribe. Family is just a tribe. Nation is just a tribe. It's just a bigger tribe. But if your tribe isn't men, and you're a man, and you go, I don't know where I belong. I've never been a man before. I've never had the ritual. I've never sailed across the equator, been a pollywog and became a shellback. I've never gone through the rite of passage of like killing the wolf when I was 6 years old with a sharpened stick. I never had that. Well, don't worry. Just do what a real man does. Well, what do they do? Well, a real man takes care of his wife. A real man marries a single mother, right? A real man does X, Y, and Z. Oh, you did that? Here's your certificate. Now you're a man. Today I am a man. And it's kind of falls flat because you still don't know how to deal with other guys, but so it remains something confusing. Like I was saying before, that guy who was I forget the guy's name, who did the TEDx talk, but he was part of Are We Man Enough? His whole shtick on TED was, I don't understand what it means to be a man, so I'm going to make it up as I go along. I'm just going to be me and call it manhood. Just be yourself, and that's a man. And you know what he's selling? He's selling you his idea of what a man. He's selling you his version of the manhood certificate. And so when you do that for generation after generation after generation, then you get a frustrated Candace Owens and you get an effeminate Harry Styles. Harry Styles thinks he's a man. Harry Styles probably thinks he's alpha. He probably gets laid. I'm sure he does. I'm sure there's lots of women that want to bang Harry Styles, even as effeminate as he is. Probably not Candace Owens or people who think like her, but there's plenty of women probably in the UK who would very much like to have his babies. Now, take away that context, and maybe there's still probably women who probably love him because he does what he wants to do. Is that a masculine trait? Like, I just do what I want to do, and then I'll be masculine. So anyways, war, combat, violence, those masculine traits, a capacity for them. Labor, as I was saying, men tend to opt for trades like metalworking, like what Rich was talking about, working in shop class, metalworking, metallurgy. I'm going to be a blacksmith, make a sword. Sacrifice is part of manhood. and will always be part of manhood. Because on a root evolved conventional level, men have what I've called, and I shouldn't even say, I didn't really coin the term, but they have a protector dynamic. And that protector dynamic is a instinctual desire to sacrifice oneself, even when it comes to altruism. Like when it comes to do or die, when it comes to save my tribe, which save my family, save my genetic line, they will sacrifice if it means that that line is going to go on. Men are disposable. I know MRAs hate it to hear this. I know that MGTOW hate to hear this. Black pill hate to hear, I'm not disposable. I'm going to do what I want. Okay, but guess what? If the bullets start flying and you suddenly instinctually find yourself throwing yourself in front of some woman that you don't know, it's because of it's your instinctive, sacrificial, disposable protector dynamic. The guys who were in the theater in Aurora, Colorado, when James Holmes decided to go and shoot up the Batman premiere, and guys found themselves throwing themselves bodily in front of women they didn't know, it's not because they go, should I do this or not? That guy's got a machine gun over there. He's got something. I better be careful. Oh, I better throw myself in front of this. And I can show you example after example of this. The guys, the people who were shot in Las Vegas, in the Las Vegas shooting back in 2017, did the same thing. Threw themselves bodily in front of women that they didn't know. There was a shooting, I think it was in Woodland Hills or Reseda, maybe in California. And I think it was in 2018, maybe in the early part of 2019. I covered this. Well, I talked about this anyways with Pat Campbell when I was on his show, and we talked about it. And I said, that's the protector dynamic. Men have an innate sense of sacrificial disposability if it means protecting the eggs. Sperm is cheap, eggs are expensive. That is all the way down to your lizard brain. Now, what about the Titanic? What about the Costa Concordia? Remember the Costa Concordia? 2013, 2012. The Costa Concordia was a cruise ship that was sinking. And guys had the time to think, self-preservation, or do I go down with the ship? And there were actually some deaths on the Costa Concordia. Go look it up. But for the most part, guys said, screw this. I'm going to get in the lifeboat, and you women and you children can go fuck yourselves. And I'm going to leave because we're all in an equal society, right? What chivalry is dead, and women and feminism killed it. So I'm going to save my own skin, and you guys can go fend for yourself. And women lost their minds. I wrote 2 essays about that when that happened. And I wrote them in response to other articles that women were writing at the time that said, I can't believe chivalry is dead. How come these guys don't know that it's women and children first? Blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? The reason why is because they had time to think about it. Bullets weren't flying. The ship was just sinking. I got time to get to the lifeboats. All right, screw it. I'm out. You guys go do what you're going to do. I'll see you later. That's not to say that there probably weren't some men on there that, helped out, but it wasn't women and children first. It wasn't Titanic, where the women and children got on the lifeboats and all the men went down to an icy death. Like Jack went to the bottom of the ocean. My heart will go on. Well, looks like there's room on that plank. Can I get on there? No. Go to the bottom, Jack. When we're in different situations, I'm talking about like in an instinctual situation where it's life or death right now. Bullets are flying. Okay, I got to do what I got to do. You'll do it without even thinking about it. It's kind of like flinching. I don't think most guys really realize how instinctual it is. When I talk about instinct, emotion, and reason, the instinct part, I think, is actually the more fascinating of all 3 of those processes. If something is thrown at you, you'll get out of the way, right? Or you have a revulsion response, or you have there's a physical, you have physical responses to environmental stimuli that are bam, immediate. I keep my dick away from sharp objects and an open flame. That right there is instinctual. Just keep it away from me, man. Or fight or flight, like the adrenal response. I'm either going to kick ass or I'm going to run like hell. Saber-toothed tiger? What am I going to do? Well, once that adrenaline gets pumped into you, then you probably don't know what you will do. You'd probably be surprised at what you do. Like guys, what's funny is like when guys get into survival situations, they surprise themselves because it's instinct. Have you ever, like, maybe this is a bad example, a bad illustration, but I've had greyhounds. You know, I take care of greyhounds. I've been a greyhound guy for a long time, and I know a lot about the breed, and I understand like what they are instinctually. Greyhounds are they're not very territorial dogs whatsoever because they're brought up in kennels and they can't really be territorial because for the most part they're racing dogs and they have to live together and they're put out. It's not that they don't get in fights, and if you see a racing greyhound, they always have muzzles on. That muzzle is not because they're like badass dogs that will bite you or anything. It's to keep them away from each other under certain environmental conditions. And those environmental conditions are this. When you see a dog on the track and that dog breaks a leg or gets injured, dogs, and I don't know about other breeds, but certainly in greyhounds, they're pack animals, as you might guess, but it's not the break. Often it used to be anyways. It wasn't the break of the leg that killed the dog. It was the other dogs turning around, piling on that dog and killing that dog, biting it, killing it, chewing it, like tearing it up. Because what happens is when a greyhound sees weakness in another dog or cries, or even in humans, right? You have to be careful because you can, if they've done experiments. I've seen these videos before where like people will get it, like guys with greyhounds or sometimes German shepherds or whatever. I don't forget the breed, but if you go and you cow and you like that and you make like a bad, like just suddenly do that, the dog will either come up to you and try to like, comfort you, or will attack you. And that's what greyhounds will do. And they're otherwise the most docile, they'll snuggle, like Ned loves me to death. We snuggle up together and he's a good boy, right? But I have had greyhounds attack other greyhounds because one had a seizure, and that's weakness. Or if the other dog is in any way like yipes, like kind of goes, gets hurt or whatever, you have to be careful because the other dog will go over and try to kill the other dog or attack the other dog because it's instinctual. And you wouldn't realize this until it happens right then and there. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to instinct. Guys don't really realize what they would do in certain situations until those situations arise. So when you have like the instinct of like throwing yourself in front of bullets, in front of women that you don't know, you don't realize that you would even do that until that happens, until all of those stimuli happen in the right order and you will do it. Sacrifice is something that men will do. Appearance, discipline. Discipline is another thing. Most guys, like and this is probably something that Candace Owens would agree with, is that discipline is a masculine trait, or it should be a masculine virtue anyways, but it's a masculine trait in that we expect men to have discipline. Why? Well, because men's sexuality is always on and women's sexuality is cyclic. We expect women not to be as sexual as men. Although that, in today's day and age, we might think something different, but from a physical standard, like I've said this a million times, is that men's natural innate mating strategy is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. We evolved as animals that can get hard get an erection when the wind blows, if we're 14, 16, 18 years old, because it was evolutionary advantageous for us to be able to ejaculate and evacuate. Get in, get out, hit it, quit it, gone. Because that was an efficient mating strategy for us in our evolutionary past. Now, it wasn't the best way to raise children, but we are monogamous in spite of ourselves. And the in spite of ourselves part is that men's sexuality is always on. As I said, healthy men have 12 to 17 times the amount of serum testosterone that women have. That leads men to, when women say, oh, women are, or you hear guys say this, well, women are just as sexual as men. No, that is a physical impossibility for women to be just as sexual as men. Physically impossible, because women's sexuality is cyclic. It is, they're far more sexual, they're far more proceptive when they're in the proliferative phase of their ovulatory cycle. When they're in the down phase, they're not quite as proceptive. It's not to say that they don't want to get laid or they won't have sex when they're in the down cycle. They will, but it's a cyclic thing. For guys, you see the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue prior to 2016, and wow, I'm into it. Let's go. You want to know why pornography is what was I saw this stat. 60% of the internet is porn. 60% of the internet is pornography. So don't tell me that men, anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is that men need discipline. We have to have, even if we don't realize we're getting discipline, we're getting discipline. Otherwise, we'd be walking around like walking hard-ons all the time. We would just be these, sex-addled idiots, and some of us are, right? But we have a higher, I think, expectation of discipline in men than we do in women today, anyways. Maybe prior to, say, the sexual revolution, that might have been different because we had compromises in mating strategies. Right now, we have old order expectations of men and new order expectations for women. So the old order expectations for women were like, don't have sex before marriage, don't pick the right guy, make sure that you pick the right guy, don't have a baby out of wedlock, single motherhood is a shame, blah, blah, blah. Now it's 100% the opposite. But for guys, everything that was a limitation or a discipline prior to the sexual revolution is still a discipline today. And that's why we get so bent out of shape when we see Harry Styles in a dress, because that was part of that discipline. Man's a man. Be a man. Was it in the Bible? I think it says something about like how like dressing up as a man dressing as a woman is an abomination. I think it's probably in the Quran too, if memory serves. Might have been Old Testament. Actually, it's probably the Talmud. I think it's probably in the Pentateuch for sure. But to wear the vestment of a man, to wear a vestment of a woman is an abomination before the eyes of the Lord. Well, is it God, or is it people go, that's wrong, we need discipline, we need to make sure that guys don't dress up like women and women don't dress up like guys, and there we go. Like Mulan. If you look at Mulan, why is Mulan even a story? Well, she dresses up like a boy so she can be a man, so she can go out there and fight because she's just as tough as any guy, right? Is there any, I wonder if there's a scripture for limiting women from being in men's roles. Dalrock said this, and this is a good segue here. Dalrock said this one time. I remember when the combat, like the active combat roles, were opened up to women in U.S. combat. I think it was 2016. I think it might have been Obama that did this. Maybe it was, but it was right. Maybe it's 2015, 2016, and the first active combat roles, like life or death. You can be an infantry person if you want to be as a woman. And of course, they're trying to like lower the requirements for women to actually get into combat. And one of those requirements is you have to be able to do 4 pull-ups. Women couldn't even do 4 pull-ups, at least in the U.S. military. I don't know how many guys can do that, but they couldn't do it because they don't have the upper body strength to do that. So, well, maybe we can just make it. We can lower the expectations. We can lower the like the WNBA. Women can't dunk, so let's see if we can drop the baskets 2 feet so that the ladies can dunk too, and then things will be different. No, you're just changing the game. Well, you can change basketball, but you can't change combat. So when people are trying to kill you in physical hand-to-hand combat and you can't keep them off of you, you become a danger not only to yourself, but to the people who, like the men, who would try to come and have that natural protector dynamic and come in and try to save your life, ladies. That's why. You want to know with gender differences that are life or death gender differences? There's one right there. But I remember when Dalrock did and the blogger Dalrock, Christo Manosphere is what Christo Red Pill blogger Dalrock once said that conservative Christians had a real problem with that new ruling that we would allow women into combat roles in the U.S. military where they can pull triggers and they can fight with K-bars or whatever, hand to hand, whatever. And it wasn't so much the rationale wasn't women shouldn't be in these combat roles. It was men have become such pussies that women have to come in and become the fighters now and the warriors now. Men are shirking their masculine responsibility, which in this case, what makes a man? Combat, war, violence. Well, men don't want to do that anymore, so we have to get some of the ladies in here to take over. Well, the fraction of 1% of ladies that got into that made it ridiculous in the first place. But notice the rationale. The rationale is responsibility. They played on it. It wasn't that, like, for the most part, tradcons are just as feminist as any liberal is. It's just that they do it in a different way, and that was how they did that. Was the responsibility of the man. You're shirking responsibility. We have so many pussies in Western societies that, well, now we have to open up the combat roles to women to save us. No, we don't. It's completely specious argument, debate, completely baseless, groundless, stupid. But that's where they go. And the reason they go there is because of exactly that discipline that I was just saying, that men have to have responsibility. And that's what tradcons will always revert to, is responsibility. They don't want to look at authority. And Candace, if you're watching this, this is where you drop the narrative. This is where most tradcons, I'm not going to pick on you, but like, this is where PragerU drops the narrative, is that they think that men, that the cure to Harry Styles is men need to man up and take more responsibility. No, we've taken all kinds of it. Men have taken more responsibility and more commitment than you will ever dream of. Because they think, most guys think that that's the key to becoming more manly and to satisfying. Well, I got to make my bed. I got to follow 12 rules for life. I got to find a purpose. Well, how do I do that? Take more responsibility. More. Men aren't commitment phobic. Men take on more commitment than women do, because men have to think about this. Men, the only when we say a man is committophobic, there is no more uniquely a woman term than committophobe, because the only thing about commitment that means anything to a woman is commitment to her, not to a business, not to family, not to the military, not to an education, learning to be whatever, a surgeon, a doctor, whatever, not a commitment to a job, not a commitment to whatever. Men make all kinds of commitments, but the only one that has any weight is, oh, you're going to commit to marriage. When? Well, when I'm 31 and I'm off the carousel, then you're a committophobe. Prior to that, it doesn't matter. You just do whatever you're going to do. Make sure that you're waiting for me in my epiphany phase. Well, that's why is the responsibility aspects of it. The responsibility aspect is that without responsibility, without authority, is slavery. Simple as that. That's what defines a slave. Really, conventionally, objectively, that's what defines a slave. 100% responsibility and 0% authority, and that's what we've done to men. We expect them to have that discipline. You want to know something that makes manhood a manhood? Well, I mean, manhood is responsibility, but that responsibility is rooted in male discipline. The idea that men need to be disciplined and have self-discipline. There's no more male out. It's not that women don't need that too. They do. But when we define men, when you define manhood, when you define masculine responsibility, it's all rooted in discipline. And that's why women like Candace Owens, who's pregnant right now, probably with the son, who's thinking about, what am I going to teach this boy when he becomes a man? Or how do I make this guy a man? Well, she doesn't want him to turn into Harry Styles. I'm like, okay. But you can't turn him into, at this stage, you will turn him into a slave, because if you don't give him authority, if he doesn't have a default authority to exercise that responsibility, he's a slave. Can't say no to it. So if your responsibility and your masculine responsibility, and men need to man up, we don't need less masculinity, we need more. Great. How do we do that? Well, men need to man up and take more responsibility. Okay. I can't take responsibility if I don't have the authority to exercise the things that I need to do to take that responsibility. Well, we can't have that. Why? Because then you'll be a misogynist or a chauvinist or a sexist or a supremacist or whateverist. We can't give men authority. We certainly can't have them talking to each other. We certainly can't have them thinking that they have a definitive definition, an objective definition of what manhood is. We can't give them rituals. We can't give them rites of passage, because that would be authority. That would be a rite of passage is like especially like if you look at like bar mitzvahs, or you look at, like I was saying, like Native American rituals and things like that, that made a man a man. A boy turns into a man. What you're doing is you're giving that boy authority. You're now a man. You have authority over your sisters and your mother and these women and this thing and your tribe and this land and these animals and whatever it is. You have authority over those things. Well, we sure as shit can't give that to guys, because if we do, then they'll take over. Then they'll be misogynists. Then that'll be the patriarchy, and we won't be an equal society then. We can't do that. Well, then what are we going to do? Well, we still need them to take over the old order sense of responsibility, but we're not going to give them any authority to do so. So, Candace, if that's where you're at, your son, I think your son is going to be a slave, because he will not be able to have any kind of authority over himself. If you want a man, give him authority. That is what defines manhood. Authority. Authority for just being a male. That's what, and that's why we don't have that right now. What's an element, like I was asked just a minute ago, what do you say? What's one thing, right? Authority, masculine authority. And we don't have that right now. In fact, we actively disincentivize that. Men disincentivize it for themselves. They would never presume to take authority, because if they do, first of all, they take blame, but you're going to take blame anyways, because you're not being responsible. But if you take authority, if you assume authority, then you're an asshat, right? Then you're a patriarch. Then you're a son of a bitch. You're an abuser. You're a potential rapist. You're a potential violent man. Which of course makes you sexy as hell, because Dark Triad makes you sexy as hell. But you want to know how? I said this before, and I'll just finish up here. Is that when I talk about people ask me all the time, and I'm finishing, like, this is in the end of book 4. People ask me, like, well, Rollo, do you think that the pendulum is going to swing back the other way? No, it's not, because there's no fucking pendulum to begin with. There's no like, wing. Oh, well, now we're going to go back to being, masculine. No, you have to go forward. And the only way that you're going to go forward and take authority is to take authority. Necessary. And I know that sounds real dangerous and woo, what's Rollo talking about? He's going to rise up and kill the man. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that at some point, guys are going to have to get so sick of this bullshit that they're going to have to say, you know what? And I realize a lot of MGTOWs and a lot of black pill guys are going to go, well, we're doing that right now. No, you're not, because you're just basically opting out of it. If you want to take authority, you're going to have to actually take authority. And most guys won't do that, because they've been trained not to. We've been conditioned to be passive. We've been conditioned to, we've been detoothed. We've had our teeth removed. We've been gelded, declawed. And if you try to take authority, then you go to jail, or you lose your job, or you lose your family, or you lose your whatever. You get erased, you get canceled if you try to do that right now. Well, enough guys are going to have less to lose in taking authority back than they are in what they would lose if they failed in doing so. And when we get to that point, that's when things will change. It won't be a pendulum swing. It'll be a going forward. You're not going back to 1950. You're not going back to, men are men and women are women. You're not going back to the greatest generation. My joke has always been like, tradcons don't want the red pill. They want a time machine. They want to go back to this golden era, this romanticized era of, well, men knew what they were they had purpose, right? Men had purpose and they knew what they're doing and they had meaningful lives. No, they didn't. They were just as stupid and just as dumb as you. But like, at least the generation that came before them gave them an idea of what their gender roles were supposed to be. And they had authority. It was default. Male authority came with patriarchy. And that's the last thing I'm going to say is that patriarchy, and I'm sort of subtweeting, I'm paraphrasing Turtlingy Monkey here, is authority is part of the patriarchy. Patriarchy is a naturally balanced system. Feminists will lose their minds when they hear me say that, but it is a naturally balanced system. Patriarchy is the social system that comes from evolved gender roles. And it's not that I think that men are superior to women. It's that it makes better sense when we are together and we live in a complementary state as opposed to an adversarial state, which is what gynocentrism is. Gynocentrism says women are better, not equal. That's the cover story. It says women are better. Patriarchy in this case says, men, you have responsibility. So in that case, traditional conservatives are correct. Men do have responsibility. But in patriarchy, they had the authority to exercise that. So because you were a man, you had responsibility for your family, for your country, for God, for whatever it is. You had a responsibility for so many things, and you had to be committed to those things. But it also came with a commensurate level of authority so that you could decide for your family what you were going to do, what you're going to do with your wife or your wives or your concubines or your property or the things that you had. I mean, at least it was, even if it wasn't actual, it was implied within the state of patriarchy. So the man is the guy who is, and he's the guy that's going to go die if he has to, because that's his responsibility. Like I said before, was a sacrifice and discipline. Those are the things. Those are things that make a man a man. Sacrifice and discipline, naturally, innately, conventionally. But with those, you need to have the authority to exercise your will, to exercise what you think is best. If you have a responsibility to the well-being of your family and you have no authority to direct that, you're a slave. Slaves in back in before the Civil War, they might have had a family, they might have had a wife and kids and stuff like that, but they had no authority over anything that they did. They had to go to the slave master or whatever. It's the same thing. They have responsibility and no authority. They have a family, they have kids, but they can't make any real decisions for them because they have no authority to do so. You, on the men of today, you have the same thing. Your masters are the women. Your masters is gynocentrism. Your master is the way that you think about gynocentrism. It's the way that you're conditioned and you're brought up into thinking that you should defer to female, that women are correct. The female experience is the correct experience. And that's how we should all live, because we need to pay equal partners and egalitarianism and blank slate and all the yeah. Because you think like that, you're a slave. And until you unlearn that, you will continue to be a slave. And your children your male children will be slaves as well. And your female children will be just as dissatisfied as Candace Owens is with Harry Styles. The end. Thank you very much. Ash, what was that? Oh, Ash says, what advice do you give women who volunteer, teach boys who struggle? Teach them, learn how boys think, learn how boys learn, and teach them as how boys learn. Could letting children have more choices over their education be an option? To a degree. Love your books, man. Keep up the great work. Thank you. That last question is actually pretty good. Could letting them have more choices over their education be an option? Yeah, but also remember that kids need direction. One thing that gets me, Ash, is have you ever watched, what's the guy's name? Dog whisperer guy. Somebody help me out here. The dog whisperer. What the heck is the guy's name now? It's why am I blocking on the dude? Anyways, that guy. That show, The Dog Whisperer, and God damn it. Somebody's gonna tell me what this is, and I'm not gonna know. Anyways, Dog Whisperer dude. Cesar Millan. Thank you, Brian. Cesar Millan, one of the great things, and this is from me because I work with dogs myself, right? I work with greyhounds. Most people, when it comes to disciplining their animals or like training their animals, there's no bad dogs. There's only bad owners. I shouldn't say that, but like this is mostly true, is that there's no bad dogs, no bad animals. There are only bad trainers and only bad owners. And if you watch that show long enough, you'll realize that most people don't want to command their dog. They don't want to discipline their dog. They don't want to crush the poor doggy spirit. They'd rather dress them up in some stupid little Halloween outfit, right? Or some tutu or something like that. I love my dog. Oh, and then they wonder why their dog is just this incorrigible, horrible animal. And Cesar Millan has to go in there. You know what Cesar Millan does? He doesn't teach the animal so much as he teaches the owner. This is what you should have been doing, you dumb son of a bitch. And usually it's because most people don't want to assume the authority. Even women won't do this, but they don't want to crush the doggy spirit. Well, then you're going to have a really bad behaved animal. When I see people who have like, there's a lot of people that have dogs around here with a dog park that's just down from where I'm at. And when I go there and I look at I can tell the difference between somebody who has trained their dog and somebody who has not. And it's even just like sort of like a by order of degree. So you go and I see these, they're kind of like, I forget the name, they're German short hairs. They're like the duck dogs, right? They're the duck retriever. You shoot the duck and it goes out there and it retrieves the duck and brings it back to you. That kind of dog. It's a German short hair something. I can't remember. It's a lab maybe. Very, very teachable, but you have to be the guy that teaches it. You have to be the one that says, I'm the human, you're the dog. I'm going to teach you what to do. Most people have no earthly clue. And that's how Cesar Millan has had a very successful career as the dog whisperer. It makes for a great show. And now think about it this way. If you're unwilling to teach the dog, to command the dog, how unwilling are you to command a child? How unwilling are you to command your wife, to command the people that are in your business? I don't want to crush their spirit. No, you have to give them direction. You have to kick them in the ass. Sometimes you have to fire them. Sometimes you have to discipline them. How many people have ever disciplined their wife or girlfriend? How many people discipline their children? And if they do, how does that differ from the way that they discipline their wife? Men used to discipline their wives all the time. What was it? I think it was the late, great Sean Connery was in a interview with Barbara Walters one time where he says, it's okay to slap a woman. What? Oh my God. But he's from an era where I'm not saying go slap your girlfriend, but I'm just saying is that he's from a generation, from an era where disciplining women was just something. That's what we do, right? If you're Arab Muslim, do you discipline your wife? I bet you do. I bet you don't have a problem with commanding her, like telling her what to do, telling her what needs to get done, assuming that authority, whether you have it or you don't. Cesar Millan, right? If you're not going to tell your dog, if you can't train your dog, you sure as shit can't train your kid. You won't take that. You won't take the initiative. You won't feel like it's within your authority and your right to do so. So I think that there needs to be, and just to answer your question, that's the real long way of saying this is that, yeah, I think so. I think giving kids a choice is great within reason, right? I want to be Superman and jump off the roof of my 2-story house. You probably need to put some discipline in there. But no, it's a career choice. Boy, you guys got crazy on me. Okay, that was. Let's see. I got to Chase, Michael W. Okay, I talked to you. Oh, Dolphin Cheddar Soup asked me this. He said, besides book 3, which is Positive Masculinity, can you recommend, and please go buy my books. Thank you. There's my plug, my shameless plug on my own show. Any books specifically for expecting fathers of a daughter? Well, first of all, read the daughter section of book 3. That's easy enough. Any books? I don't know any. I have to look that up. That's what you want to know why I wrote that section in Positive Masculinity, because I couldn't find any. I'll look that up. I'll see what I can find for you, Dolphin. Adam Smith says the psych HR women I date are insane. Okay. A red flag is when they say they want. Oops, wait a minute. A red flag is when they say they want a man with empathy or compassion. Your recommendation, top 5 MBA in person or top 20 MBA online if needed to advance in my field. I have no earthly clue, dude. Actually, I'm not a good person to ask about that. You know who would be better to ask? The 2 people that I would suggest that you go ask about. Ask Rich Cooper, who I just had on today, and then ask Aaron Clary, who I will be on with in a mere 3 hours. I'm going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons with Aaron Clary and Vince and TJ, and Rob was supposed to be on, but I don't think he's going to be on. But all the guys that I usually play Dungeons and Dragons with on once a month on the Masculine Geek. Go look up Masculine Geek on YouTube right after I hang up the phone here on you. because I will be doing that. Delam says, innately on a biological level, has gynocentrism really destroyed masculinity, or has socially constructed masculinity devalued the progress of the feminine imperative? Okay. So Delam, this is me. Okay. This is my theory. I'm not going to give you sources to cite. I'm just going to give you my opinion of that whole thing. I think that innately we're still the same critters that we were when we were on the evolving in hunter-gatherer tribes in the sub-Saharan African savannas. Okay. We have the basic machinery anyways. Masculinity and the things that make us conventionally masculine, the biologically determined things that contribute to our sense of gender and our gender roles and our division of labor, that kind of good stuff, that hasn't changed whatsoever. Our expectations are still the same. If you don't believe me, go look at the statistics of what happens when a woman is making less money than a man, and they get married and they are living happily, and then the woman gets a promotion and she starts making significantly more money than the man does. Guess what happens? They get divorced. Why? Because we're still the same critters that expect a man to be in control and to have the authority and to have responsibility and to have all those great things that I've been talking about for the last half hour, because it's an innate part of us. So no, I don't think that social constructionism has destroyed or devalued masculinity. I think it's still there. It's just we need to sort of either two things need to change. And I think you know which one's the more likely of these two. Is one, environment has to change. A meteor has to hit the planet Earth. A natural disaster the floodwaters have to start rising. A war has to happen. Something has to happen on the survival level in the environment where men have no other choice but to sacrifice, have discipline, be ready to storm the beaches of Normandy. That has to happen, and then things might change. Or we can make a conscious effort to say, oh, we need to go back to we need to learn how we got to this fucked up place, how we can go back, unlearn all that shit and become better people and give something to have multi-generational mentorship for the future. Which one of those things do you think is going to happen first? The world's going to explode and we need men to be men, or we're all going to collectively, rationally go back and say, this is how we fucked up and here's how we can be better. No, things are going to get fucked up pretty badly too. Remember what they say, was it the good times create weak men create bad times create strong men create good times. Well, we're in the weak men create bad times section right now. And I don't know how much I really buy into that, but if that's true, it's because of biological factors rather than sociological factors. There you go. Environmental factors. Facundo again says, is there a definition of masculine? Okay, I already got to you. Ash, I got to you. Adam Smith, likely Kamala takes over the presidency before 2024. Yes, I'm already predicting that. Take that to the bank. If Trump turns over and takes it in the butt, then yeah, you take that to the bank. She will be president. That's how you will get the first female president. It won't be through election. It will be through subterfuge. Delam again says, cross-cultural. My wife and her family Iranian. Okay, I got to you. Hadrian's Wall. I'm debating whether to continue in my study for a female-dominated health field or to drop out and start a construction trade. There's more opportunity in the health field, but I'm worried. In the construction trade, if you started your own business, at least you have the authority over your own business. I mean, to a much greater degree than you would if you are working for someone else in a female-dominated health industry that is in control of your destiny. So I would suggest, if it's just me, I would say go for creating your own business and exercise tyrannical control over it. There you go. Donald Gray says, simping goes way back. Watch the beginning of Gone with the Wind, Simp Central. Yeah, it does. Simping is not beta males have existed for a long time. The 80-20 rule is not something that I just pulled out of my ass like last year. Okay, it's been around for a long time. Facundo, Jack Adams, thanks for that 99 cents that you retracted. Facundo Rosado says, why the bigger the hoop, the bigger the whore? You're talking about hoop earrings. 2, don't you wear skinny jeans on your Instagram? I don't know. Are these skinny jeans? I don't know. I don't think so. What qualifies as skinny jeans? I don't have like stylish skin. I mean, okay, here's the thing. If you can't fit the pant leg over your boots, those are skinny jeans. That's how I go. Okay. I have some pretty nice kind of like biker boots. As long as I can fit the pant leg over those, then they're not skinny jeans. That's what I'm sticking with. Hoop earrings is sexual ornamentation. Ask me about that sometimes. Red dress is a sign of ovulation in women. Sexual ornamentation is a well-studied phenomenon amongst not just human females, but lots of other females as well on different species. The hoop earrings thing. Next time you're watching porn, and I know you will, look for the hoop earrings. You'll see that is a very popular style of earring. You will not see little studs. You will not, maybe you might see the gauges. I don't know. But if you see a woman wearing earrings in pornography, and Sterling Cooper, I'm sure will back me up. I'm going to be on Sterling Cooper's show next Monday, by the way. I will bring that up. I promise I will bring this up, the hoop earring thing. It will go watch porn if you're not already. And look, even if just for scientific purposes, I'm not trying to get you to break your fast of no fap November or whatever. But watch porn, watch the chicks. I will guarantee you that 90% of the time there will be hoop earrings, and the larger the hoops, the bigger the hoe. Let's see. Or am I remembering wrongly? 3 doesn't Tanner Guzzi wear skinny jeans? I don't know what Tanner Guzzi wears these days. 4. Then what's manly clothing? I don't know. What do you think is manly clothing? I'll tell you what's not manly clothing. Wearing dresses like women. Wearing the common things that women wear to make themselves more attractive to the male sex. Are you gay? Well, then maybe you want to be more attractive to the male sex. And therefore you can go and wear whatever the hell you want to wear that attracts the person that you want to get with, right? But for manly, here's the thing is you can, I put this in my notes actually, was appearance. Tanner Guzzi, I have locked horns with Tanner, which is kind of sad because I really like Tanner, but Tanner has a really great book called The Appearance of Power. And men absolutely care what they look like. Absolutely. Throughout history, I can give you, I wouldn't give you, Tanner can give you example after example of how men dress to impress. We care no matter what anyone tells you. I don't care what anyone thinks about me. Yes, you do. If you got up this morning and you put on this and this and this and this and everything else, you care about what people think about you. Do you go to a funeral in jeans and a t-shirt or shorts and flip-flops, or do you wear black in a semi-formal way? Do you go to a wedding in a tuxedo, or do you go in a clown suit? You care what people think. By order of degree, everyone does. We're social animals. We all care what other people's impression of us are. Even if the only person you see, the only people I'm going to see today are my dogs, my wife, and probably my mother-in-law, and I still dress. Not because I want to get after it. No. What are you doing it for? You care what other people do. Would you wear a clown suit to, unless you're auditioning for a clown, do you wear a clown suit to a business interview, to a job interview? No, of course you don't. You care about what they think about you. Everybody does to some degree. So just get over yourself. Biden, Biden's win wasn't about Biden. It was about getting a woman in the White House. Yeah. Thank you for explaining something that I've been trying to explain for the last year and a half. Go back to Rule 0 on December 29th. Actually, you can go back to Rule 0, December 29th, 30th of even 2018. Actually, it would have been Red Man Group back then, but in 2019, I made the prediction that this is exactly what was going to happen. It happened a little bit backwards, but what I thought was going to happen actually happened. We're going to have a woman in the White House, vice president or president. She'll end up becoming president because they've already put the fix is already in. Even Nancy Pelosi has already decided that she's going to invoke she's already told us, she gave us a preview of it back in October. She went to great pains to explain the 25th Amendment and how when a president is deemed mentally incompetent, that the vice president takes over. Didn't quite sound like she was talking about President Trump, but maybe a future President Biden. That made a lot of sense for. So yeah, the fix is already in. That's what they plan to do. It's been in the books for a while now. I don't know if Kamala even realizes it because she seems kind of oblivious and kind of like, just go with whatever they tell me. But that's how they're going to put a female in the White House, and they'll make and trust me, when that day happens, you will see fireworks and fanfare and parties and all over the world, not just in the United States. Oh, first female president. They won't even care that she didn't get it. No cognitive dissonance whatsoever that she had to find her way in through the back door. There you go. Now now Tracy, whatever your freaking name is, go write another article about that. I said it. Yes, trust me. Kamala Harris was the intended target here, not Biden. Biden's got dementia. You don't have any proof of that. I don't need any proof of that. All I got to do is listen to the guy. My father died from Alzheimer's dementia. There's my proof right there. I know exactly what it sounds like. He has dementia. He has dementia and will probably be deemed mentally incompetent within 6 to 8 months after he is inaugurated, if he's inaugurated. Because I don't know. But this isn't a political show. Jack Adams says, shout out to Culty Bra. If I can do this, I'm going to get Colt on this show. I know he kind of fluctuates. I know he has a place in Florida, and I know he has a place up here in Tahoe. And he is a snowmobiler or sledder like myself. So if I can get out on my sled with him and we can go to Mount Rose or we can go boondocking somewhere, and then later on I can either take my GoPro with me or else get him down here in the studio or just like get him to come on. I want to talk to, I just want to like, I don't know, pick his brain and just shoot the breeze with him sometime. I think it might make for an interesting show. Adam Smith says, can you compare and contrast Candace Owens and Tomi Lahren in the context of how much more or less one understands gender dynamics than the other? Tomi Lahren understands gender dynamics more than Candace Owens. I know that sounds really weird. The reason I say that is because Tomi Lahren is in the game. She's got skin in the game right now. Candace Owens does not. And I'm not sure how much she actually had in the first place. Tomi Lahren would not have lost her shit on that video back in August, had she not had skin in the game. Remember, Candace Owens has been married since August of 2019. So she's kind of been out of the game for a little bit, but even prior to that, both of them suffer from the same kind of feminism. I think that maybe more so for Tomi Lahren, because Tomi Lahren sounds and shrieks like a feminist. She uses exactly the same language. She uses exactly the same rationales as any militant feminist. She just doesn't want to be called a feminist. I have heard, and I don't have it offhand, but I know that Candace Owens has called herself a feminist, but she's a good feminist, right? She's the conservative, good, God-fearing feminist. I would be interested to know whether or not Candace Owens supports a woman's right to choose. Because right now, if you want the compare and contrast, I know for a fact that Tomi Lahren is pro-abortion. That's a real big one right there. Chase Tenney says, I have full custody of my kid. Good for you. I don't LTR women's kids. When told I'm a hypocrite from women, I just say, yep, I wouldn't date me either. Grin. Well, good for you. That's a Muse mastery, by the way. Matt Wesley says, the military's problem today is that it is the federal government's social experiment. Today's military is not the fighting force of World War II. Yeah. That's a real interesting point you have right there. I have given, now this is really off topic, but I have given thought to the idea that we will never have, well, maybe not in the same way, but we will never have another World War II. Not in that same way. We will not fight wars like we did in 1942. We will never again, I don't think we'll ever fight wars like we fought in Desert Storm, or even Afghanistan, really. We will fight it. It will not be, we're already not fighting. You will not see people in uniforms fighting other people in uniforms. You will not see mass troop movements. You will not see tank brigades. You will not see, it will be all cyber war. It will all be guerrilla warfare. If there is, it will be radicals in the streets. You will not see uniforms. You will not see that level of tribal nationalistic organization ever again. It might be ideological, but it won't be based on nationality. It will be based on like your shared ideology as to we're already seeing it. Antifa versus whoever. It doesn't even have to be Proud Boys. It could be anybody. It could be Antifa versus the world, and however the rest of the world organizes. We're all going to wear black, and we're all going to wear these. Oh, that's your uniform, but it's not really a uniform. You're just wearing the same color. But that's how wars will be fought in the future, on the streets, between people, not organized militaries. And I agree with you. I think that the way that the military is organized right now, and this is just my personal opinion and the opinion of guys that I have dealt with in the manosphere, is that the U.S. military today is really a social program. It's kind of like where you go if you can't go to community college. Well, go into the Imperial Guard. I'll go into the National Guard. Spin Doctor, thanks for that $3. Caesar Milan, thank you guys. Bradford Hogue said to me, Rollo, I agree with what you're saying about responsibility and authority. What would taking authority look like, though? Ugly. Right now, ugly. Because I think you would see more. It wouldn't be like when MGTOW guys say it's time to we need to repeal the 19th. We need to take the power back. You're not going to do that. And it's not going to happen because women will fight you. It's because other men will fight you. Because those men are the same guys I was just saying a minute ago, who are the guys who want to tell you that you should think their way, like they want to police your thoughts. Those guys will be the first ones to come to blows with you, to fight you for that authority. And erase you and dox you just like a bitch. It's funny because I think what's funny to me is not funny, but it's ironic to me that when I have been doxed, it has not been by women. It has not been by feminists. It has not been by anti-red pill, whatever. It has been from within the manosphere. It's never been from outside the manosphere. It's always been from inside the manosphere. First time I got doxxed was in 2015, and that was because Roosh and I were at odds, and the people on his forums decided they wanted to dox me. Right now, I've been doxxed. My daughter's been doxxed, and my wife has been doxxed, not by people outside the manosphere, but by sons of bitches who are in the black pill community right now. Those are the people who have doxxed me, not outside. Look on the inside. You have more to fear from the spurgs that are in this whole thing than you do from anybody that's outside. So there's your so taking authority back. I wouldn't worry about it so much as from the outside the sphere as I would on the inside of the sphere. Eric Wheeler says, what did you say, Eric? That's Facundo again. Eric Wheeler says, get on Parlay. I am on Parlay. Go look me up. Rollo Tomassi on Parlay. I'm there. Go look me up. More men need to hear what you have to say. Well, I think I have a bigger following on Gab right now than I do on Parlay. I'm a little sketchy about Parlay. I use Parlay just for announcing shows right now. I might be convinced to use it a little bit. Aubrey Huff keeps telling me to use Parlay. I might. Okay. I mean, if it takes off, I will. I thought Gab was going to be parlay for a while. Chocolata says, how do you see dating in 2050? I won't, because I'll probably be dead. Facundo says, maybe I won't be dead. I might be really, really old, really fucking old. Is it possible to discipline a woman who is incapable of pair bonding after riding the carousel so that you can have a healthy relationship? Is that even possible if you are her best option? Well, Facundo, is it possible to discipline a woman who is? It is, if you're the kind of guy that she respects, and if you are the most alpha guy in her life. Remember what we said before, like women will imprint on the most alpha male that is in their lives. They'll start to listen to Swedish death metal, right? They'll start listening. They suddenly become Raiders fans because they want something in common with you. It like guys seeing that for what it is are very rare, and using that and twisting that and manipulating that and leveraging that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense that, like, most guys are too shit-stained scared to ever even think that they should be disciplining or to ever think that they should have authority. It's not about the quality of the woman so much as it is the quality of the man. Most guys would never, like I said, the Caesar Milan, they would never think to command or discipline their dogs. What on earth? How would they ever have that thought about a human being? In fact, the reason why they won't discipline their dogs is because they can't have that thought about disciplining their children or their wives or their mothers or their families or and I don't mean like discipline like you're beating on them with a freaking paint stick or something like that. I mean, like, just like you saying, look, no, we're not going to do it. Telling them no is a form of discipline. No, you're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to make the decision here. It's my call. We're going to do that. It's not your call. Oh, yeah, I'm out. I'm going to divorce you. Well, then fine. I guess you're going to divorce me. It's not the quality of the woman. It's the quality of the man. Quality. It's the headspace, the mindset of the man. So that was you. I got that. And you guys kill me with these damn things. Chase Towney says, hypothetical, would you go on Joe Rogan if invited? Yes, I would, but I will never be invited. D. Lamb says, for the group that, what is your medicine for masculine men with my medicine for with 100% responsibility and 0% authority? Law enforcement is ready to take away your rights. Right. Well, live free or die, my friend. What are you going to do about it? As I said, Delam, it's not going to change because we're all going to go, hey, everybody, let's go give men authority again. In fact, authority doesn't even exist unless you take it, unless you believe you should have it, unless you have this either divine sense of entitlement to it, which is what women believe. Women believe they are entitled to authority right now. Absolutely. You want to know, here's what you do. You want to know, you want an example of authority? Look at the entitlement of women when it comes to men. Look at the standards that women hold for men, that they feel they're entitled to, that's what's owed to them. Look at the hubris. Look at the pride that goes along with that. That's authority. We'll put up with that. We'll go, oh, well, it's a woman. She should have it. Well, restitution and retribution, man, we got to give women rights. We wouldn't want to crush their little women-y spirits. And like the doggy spirit, we wouldn't want to discipline them or pretend that we're all equals. No, you're not. And the minute you realize women's hubris, and the minute you realize and you look at how women are entitled to standards for men and you are not, that's authority. That's an example for authority right there. How do I get authority back? Well, look at what women are doing and start presuming that you're entitled to that authority too. I can't, I'm a man. Yeah, I know. And you don't think that because you've been taught that she's right and you're wrong, that her experience is correct and yours is deficient. Yours is wrong. Start thinking. You want to take responsibility. You want to take authority back. Start believing that your being masculine is not wrong. That's where it all starts. And I'm going to quit here in just a second. So don't give me any more. Would I go on Joe Rogan? I'll tell you why I wouldn't. I would go on Joe Rogan in a heartbeat. but he ain't never gonna call me. He ain't never gonna call me, because the first thing I would be at, the first discussion we would have would be about paternity and cuckoldry and single fathers or fathers dating single mothers. And I know that he married a single mother and has 2 children that are adopted, I guess, by him. And that would really probably piss him off. Both Tammy and Owens are Phyllis Schlafly's feminists. Thank you for the political statement there, Paul. All good. And that is that. I will be on Rule Zero. I might be hosting it. It's either okay. So Rule Zero is going to be on Saturday. Either it'll be on this show, on this channel, or it will be on Ryan Stone's channel. I know that Rich couldn't do it. So look for Rule Zero on my channel, on this one you're watching right now, or else it'll be on Ryan Stone's, because it's one of our turns. I'm not sure who. Let me know what you want to talk about. I'll be happy to maybe take that in consideration. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. And oh, by the way, if you want to see me play, I'm actually the storyteller. I'm the game master. I'm the dungeon master for the dungeon plunderer for D&D with Masculine Geek. It will be at 9 o'clock Eastern time on the Masculine Geeks channel. Just go look it up on YouTube and you will see it. It's a lot of fun. I don't talk. It's a lot of fun because we don't take it too seriously, and I play old school D&D. I play like second edition D&D. So that will be happening at 9 p.m. Eastern. If we do it once a month, actually sometimes we do it twice a month, but this time we're doing it once a month, and I will see you then. All right, guys. Bye-bye.